Hey, how's it going? Helps if you actually get on the thing. My squirrel fun. I was really looking forward to my squirrel thing, and but nobody was into it. Kind of a bummer. So, I'm just gonna. Sorry, I should have. I wish I could do this before the thing, but it doesn't work that way. Okay, comments. Hi. Yeah, fucking peanut man and pork. I I thought everybody would be into some revolutionary party over that. But anyway, I Elon Musk and me just we ain't jiving. It's almost like I got to stay online permanent to get anybody to see me. I just can't get that Twitter to be my friend. So I got to find a way. Yeah, oh, you're right. That's right. Fred's getting the fuzzy end of the lollipop, man. Poor Fred. Nobody remembers Fred. How specious we're. Maybe it's because he's got the name he's got. Nobody likes. I don't know. Maybe he's not cute enough. There's that old joke about they only care about the cute ones. Anyway, um, yeah, I couldn't get anybody to stay. Like I had three people join, and the minute I said the word Trump, one or TDS, one guy leaves, and I thought, Jesus, yeah, yeah. I put a warning on it, but it didn't work. So uh, I was going to try to tie in the squirrel being euthanized with this storyline I have in one of my campaign worlds, but it didn't really go anywhere because there wasn't anybody there to listen. um, but I am working on the paracosmic convergence, but I've made the mistake of going, being I'm so persnickety. I look at stuff and I go, that ain't right. I can't put that in there. It's got to be fixed. It's got to be changed. It's got to be absolutely right. So I've kind of second guessed a lot of what I've done and going, no, 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 you got to change it. So I'm kind of editing as I go, and that's probably a bad habit. But I've never done this before, and I mean, if you see me tweet, I'm afraid I'm going to you know, write something backwards, or I'm afraid of typos or something like that. So I've really been going over there. I yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing. I don't want to get too. I didn't like the. I had one interaction with that gal and it didn't go well. But I mean, people say, "Well, that's you. You know, you don't go well with anybody." It's really not true. But in that case, it didn't. And so, but I that seems like old hat stuff to me. So I just. But okay, whatever floats your boat. So I sorry. I don't want to sound like one of those snoots, but so that's cool. I try ask people if they want to see games being played, and they all just yawn and go, "No way, I don't want to watch." So, was she talking about them or was she playing them? Yeah, yeah. I mean, I like what I've come up with. I've just I've gotten to the point where when I type, sometimes it's almost dyslexic looking, and I'm afraid I'm going to do that on accident. I got some nerve damage, and everybody goes, "You're just dyslexic," and I go, "I'm not. I never was." But I got banged around a lot in the service, and I've got some nerve damage on one end, and I do tend to do that. It might be from the shot that I had. I don't know, but but I'm afraid it's going to show up in my writing. So I go through it and I make sure nothing's written wrong, and then I go, well, maybe I should do this. So, but I put out earlier. I said, I got to stop listening to anybody talk about complexity or any of that crap because it's just hot air. And if I chase those people around, I'll change stuff till the end of time. Here's the thing. Here's the problem I have. If you have people like to talk with on the stream, that you can do any show. There's never enough talk about things. Uh, that was so. There's never enough time to talk about. I mean, you can't talk about things on my own, and so. But if I had people with me, uh, do I still have people after that little issue? I don't even know if people are here. Yeah, it's just oh, fucker. Okay, so but if you have people, you can talk about everything. I listen to that bear or watch that bear guy. It only like 5 or 10 minutes at most times, because he's not letting everybody. I mean, anyway, those guys can talk about the same shit 5 or 6 different times. Nobody cares. Um, but uh, but alone, nobody wants to hear it. So, uh, and I have this gal, that is supposed to be yeah, the co-host with me, but I just can't get her to be, she's not reliable. She has no incentive to be reliable because she's not being paid, and I'm not going to pay her. I don't have the money to, and I don't think it's something that, I would anyway. But she's kind of, she doesn't really have the manners to stay. Now she'll say, "Well, I've got issues and stuff," and she does, and so sometimes it's not her fault, but sometimes, you know, she's just not excited enough to do it. And guys like Bear, he's got a whole group of people that show up all the time, and they can yep. And okay, but it does make it much easier. But even at that, some of that stuff just becomes recycled to me. I don't know what you could come up with on Mega Dungeons. You know, we did that stuff back in the 80s. I used to there was one at Gen Con. It was 3D and it had like 50 people and all that stuff, and it was gigantic. And it was cool. I loved Gen Con for big games, but okay, we've done it. And to me, some of this stuff is over analyzed. I mean, what can you really, you know, I drew a dungeon on an 8.5 by 11. I drew a bigger one on a 14 by 19. I've got 10 levels on 14 by 19. I believe that's what um, Rob Kuhn said they used in dimensions for Greyhawk. I mean, okay, cool, but it's just I don't know. I don't want to sound shitty or snobby, but I'm not really sure how much of that. I mean, what do you analyze with that? I drew a bigger map, right? But there's the thing. To me, that doesn't seem excited. But what seems exciting to me obviously isn't pulling anybody because I'm usually talking to air. So it probably is my problem. But I just go, okay. I don't know. It's like that Braunstein stuff. Everybody's acting like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Sorry, but Well, that's the other thing. I Mr. Wilson wants them off his yard lawn. I don't, I can't deal with people that are significantly younger than me. I don't know. I can't relate. So I don't know. Um, but I did. I mean, I had a guy that was my age, and sometimes he would bring up stuff like that, and I was just like, I don't really know there's okay, and there's part of it. That's one of the things with these broser guys, because I went around with one of them guys, more than one, but one in particular that they do that bullshit. Jeffro Johnson, blah blah blah, is the greatest thing since sliced bread. He changed everything, and I was like, son, what are you talking about? I've been doing that stuff since you were knee high to a grasshopper, or maybe you weren't even born yet. There's nothing new about any of that stuff. So I don't know. Same thing with that basic expert guy. He acted like he was excavating some ancient archaeological thing, and it was a weird deal because he liked that old stuff, or at least acted like he did, but he hated old people, like a lot of those youngsters do. Absolutely hate them, wouldn't listen to them. You go to him and say, no, here's how it was done, and he just, no, I'll tell you how it was done. I know better than you because I read a book. Okay. Are they though? That's another thing. Are they? I mean, won't they look at something that I'm doing? I mean, to me, they look at an old person, they go, oh, that's old shit. There seems to, I mean, when I was, I'm sure we all were the same. When you're of a certain age, especially a male, there's a period of time where you think that you know more than everybody on the effing planet. And adults don't understand all that. But to me, that attitude has become pervasive with people to the extreme, and has lasted outside of the old, the time frame that we had it, and it's lasted into a demographic that's much older, and to me, they seem to be like COVID. This seems like a great example, as morbid as it is. The very first trend I remember on Twitter about COVID was the phrase boomer remover. And because originally they said something about it being, only affecting older people or whatever like that, because older people have less of a immune system or whatever it is. But many of them seemed like they were happy about that. They seem, oh, they're just old and don't understand. They've gone to F those people. I hope they die because they're in the way or something like that. So I don't know that I mean, are they going to look at my product at all? Or are they just going to go, he's got gray in his beard. Fuck that. Well, and there's the other problem that as far as change, I've never looked at game design as something being like, it's not like a VCR. A lot of the younger people go, well, it's some evolution. And if it was made in 1970, it's more primitive and all that sort of bad bullshit. I don't, that some of the best ideas came from the past. And here's the thing. People do, like we were just talking about, people say, well, they have just discovered mega dungeons. Well, that's just it. I know guys that absolutely believe that a particular man came up with a war game idea, and the man didn't. He got it from some books that he read that were a couple decades older than the thing that he printed his in. But because it was their first exposure to it, they assumed and ran with the idea that he was the inventor of it. In both cases, the individuals were dead, so there was no one to make a correction to them. But a lot of this stuff is just recycled. Well, I mean, the people at WotC are probably younger as compared to young comparative to me. Um, most of them anyway. I don't know them. You know, I never knew that many, and I only knew the people that I dealt with when I had a business account with WotC, and that was 15 years ago. So I doubt any of those people are there. I remember this much. The chick that I dealt with as a personal representative that handled my account, smoking. And I mean, just a total smoke show. And probably maybe 5 years older than me. So, but I don't know now. I like the older chicks. MILF. Well, I mean, I don't know how old some of these guys are. I know Kuntz is the only guy that I can think of that's older than me. Um, Peterson, I think if you know Sandy Peterson, I think he's about my age. Costigan, if he's still around, he's about my age. Um, Gary was, significantly older, but shit, was as old as my dad. but um, but Kuntz is like 5 or 8 at the most, older than I am. Um, but yeah, it's my, I don't know. I mean, if I have this too. People say, "Well, you got to reach the younger crowd." It's not the first time I've heard that. I don't know how. Um, I don't know what I could give them. I tried with that basic expert in his group of people, but um, they seem to think they knew it all. I really want to eat this. I'm not supposed to eat on mic, but I really, really, really want to eat this Ritz right now. I won't though. Get it out of my hand. Yeah, I think Gary was a year older, if not it was almost the same age. Yeah, and I played his game. But the thing is that, um, bro, when I would go to these things, I was like so young. People asked me where is your parents? Like the first conventions I went to, they're like, he's too young to be here alone. They didn't, and they would kind of give me a, on the head when I say, hey, I want to go play Blue Max, or I want to play Starfleet Battles. They're like, hey kid, you're too young for this. Who let you in here? I was significantly younger than most of those people. Um, um, and well, I can't think of anybody that was near my age at a couple of those things. So, um, and I think I don't know. I don't want to, what do you say? I just don't think that the hostility was there. Um, in fact, I was so young, I wasn't even teen enough to go, oh yeah, adults are assholes. I was still, 9 or 10. And then, I mean, there was times, but like I say, it didn't roll into the 20s, or, seems like the 18 to 24 crowd hate people who are old. And it's like boomers ruin society. I can't own a house because boomers did bad shit. I ain't even a boomer. I'm not that old. But it's not just, oh, you don't understand because you won't let me go to the sock hop with my girlfriend. So I don't know. I mean, I'd have to work on how to approach them, but not really sure how. Kuntz is 69. Okay. Yeah. So that's the oldest one I know of. I can't think of anybody near that age that is currently making things. Um, so and I could be wrong because my memory. Um, I did a lot of drinking and stuff, frankly, in the past. So sometimes the memory isn't the where it should be. But uh, I just I don't know how to reach them. Everything seems uh, to be so hyper focused on it being too hard and taking too long. I wouldn't really know what they want. First, I'd have to shake the or deal, maybe is a better way to put it, with the attitude that game design is some sort of technological evolution, because I firmly disagree with that, and I'd have to figure out how to tell them. What the hell happened down there? Got a bug bite. Um, how to deal with that, because most of the stuff I'm doing is taken from stuff from the late 70s to late 80s, basically. So, um, but you got this weird deal where um, people are acting like, a lot of those type of people, like that Hermione and stuff, are acting like they've discovered something new, or they're revolutionizing the current state of things by resurrecting this stuff. And of course, we're looking at it like, yeah, you know, did that 40 years ago. So I'm not really sure what to do, you know. And then you go in there and you say, hey, if you're interested in this stuff, I've been doing it, um, since disco was a thing, and they're not impressed with that at all. Uh, so I'm not really sure how to go after them. That was the other thing. This gal was supposed to be helpful because she had a marketing background, but I ain't putting her down. She's a very nice lady, and she is very helpful in many things. Um, but she's a little burned out too. So, and I would be if I had to go through what she has to go through all the time. So I shouldn't be too harsh on it. Um, but we don't know how to market to the younger crowd. So definitely something to examine how to do. I always envisioned finding somebody that I could pay for that, because, hey, do you know how to talk to somebody who's half my age? Because I don't. Maybe find somebody half my age that could do it. I don't know what to do. Um, one thing I need to do is you don't have to type a paragraph. I can get you. I mean, if you want a link to come up here and talk, so you don't have to rub your because there's like a 10-second delay. I can send you a link and you could just come up and talk if you've got a mic and you know, have like a conference call. It'd be like a CNN panel. You don't have to turn on your video camera. You'll just show a little avatar that you have, and you can talk, and it's like in real time or close to. Because I can't, I mean, I try to type. I think that's a problem I had with Bill's Live. I was typing stuff and it ended up being like 20-second delay and seemed like it was random and out of sorts. I I don't want to sound like I hate everybody. Though I did have one guy that from Bill's. Well, here's the thing. I mean, I'll talk to a Star Wars guy. Um, that those two dudes, man, like I saw you ask them about my shit, and they're like, "Fuck him and his shit. He blocked us and all that." But the only time I saw, first of all, the old guy, he just keeps saying really asshole things, and I don't know that they're like. One time he just said really shitty things to me, and then in general he just says stuff that seems like it's pointed and kind of aggravates me. And the little dude, the young dude, the only time I've listened to him is he kept saying, I've had too much to drink. And he sat on the mic and just badmouthed a bunch of people. Even to the point where the old guy was like, "Hey man, maybe you should chill out a little bit." And it was just that's kind of off-putting. Yeah, I don't even know their names. That I When I started doing lives, I said, "Hey, check my. Does anybody mind just coming on, making sure everything works? Maybe typing a few things. I don't even know if you can hear my microphone. It's hard to know because I lived alone. I didn't have anybody to check with me." And the guy's like, "Well, first of all, your lighting sucks. You look like you live in a filthy pit and you got a bad beard." I didn't ask, dude. I didn't. You're not my mom. I just wanted to know if you could hear my mic. Didn't need to hear all that. It was kind of out of bounds. And so I was like, okay, you know. Um, and he's never said anything that hasn't been irritating every time I've read him say something. And the other guy was just a drunken asshole to a bunch of people. So they didn't really look very appealing to me. Yeah, yeah, I'm not. Uh, so I don't know. I've just never been one for that kind of people. Um, but I guess that's it. I guess here's the thing I've learned. For a long time, I was bitching about people saying, "Well, I hate that VTT stuff. I hate that internet stuff. I want to play it on a real table." And I thought, well, really, what's the difference? But after a while, I realized what it really is. They may not be saying it in so many words, but I think what it really is that if you're playing with a bunch of people you know or have gotten to know, you realize that you've accepted them. You wouldn't be playing with them regularly if you didn't like them. So you've got a group that is gelled and enjoys each other's company. When you play VTT and it's some thing organized over the internet, you don't know who's coming. You don't know these people, and sometimes it could be okay and it could be sociable, but sometimes you'll just get somebody who annoys the hell out of you, and it ruins the whole thing because you set aside the afternoon to game, and instead of having a fun game, you've got this one guy who's or gal or whatever that's ruining it for you in whatever way. And so I just think I think the whole I want to play locally is it's more safe and it's more guaranteed to be enjoyable, which I now see because I've not that everybody that I play VTT with is horrible or anything like that, but I've had some I've had some personality clashes. But to be fair, I've seen that happen in face-to-face situations too. So, um, both at friends' houses and at Gen Con and other conventions and playing at the local game store and stuff like that too. So sometimes it just happens. But yeah, that's another thing. Why people, yeah, like I used to go to a board game geek and war game forums and all this stuff. And the wargamer guys, even back in the 90s when most people were like, don't use your real screen name, they always use their real name. Always. And they would do this kind of thing where they acted very rude on forums. And then they would go to a convention and their name and wear a name. And you'd go, "You're that guy that said that shit about me and my mom on the forum." And they just go, "Well, that's just the internet, man. It ain't no big thing." No? Oh, okay. So I don't know, man. I had one guy, name was Dave, was Werebonth, and he was a designer, and he said publicly he wanted to break both my kneecaps. I mean, that's the kind of shit that. And then you go to oh, that's just the way they are on the internet, bro. Man, my squirrel thing. I Okay. Yeah, we'll check that out. The bill thing. Yeah, I'll have a peek. I don't know, man. I as far as chatting with people, I'm not sure. Um, I don't know what. I guess here's the thing. What I what I've been concerned about is that the only way people like the basic expert make their thing saleable or get sales on their thing is because they've they've created this little online clique of people, and all those people that are, his little buddies, they all help fund his, you know projects, and then pay for it, and then, it'll they might help promote it a little bit or whatever. But it seems like some of these guys aren't really making any big amount of money. They may be making some notoriety, but like there's the whole Bear crowd, Bear and his people. He's got his server with the and sure there's some pardon me there's some crossover, but generally he's got his little clan, and they're all into his heroic, and they all bought it for him, and they'll all help fund it. And TB's got his Aztec thing or whatever, and the same deal. But they're just like these little ecosystems, and I don't know that they'll ever really connect, and that you'd be able to really get a broad audience for anything anymore because of that. That's the thing that concerns me about this. So I was thinking, well, maybe you need to generate your own little ecosystem, but there's two problems. I'm not very good at it. I don't have that much to talk about. And it's kind of a tapped out thing because everybody's already established themselves over years worth of doing it, like Bill and Bear and that sort of thing. Right. Nobody, I mean, that's the other thing. This is probably the problem I have is that I very people could look at you and go, "Why would you be such an effing idiot?" and all that. Well, maybe you could give me some slack if I tell you the whole story, but the bottom line is I got it in my mind, and maybe I let my mind get there because it was like, "Hey, this would be cool." That there was something there that's not there as far as potential, and I'm kind of up shit's creek when it comes to work and all that. Now, and out of desperation, and so I might have paddled up the wrong tributary as far as this stuff goes, and how much time I put into it, and how much I might get out of it, and all that sort of stuff. I might, you know, it'd be nice to get your name out there, and maybe it's something that you can build off of for a little side work or whatever. And I'll get this book done. It's the What I've decided to do is just do the kind of a rules tome, and then it has everything you need to play. Some people said, "Oh, you got to have a player's manual, and you got to have a dungeon master's manual and all that." And I says, the thing is that it just becomes too expensive to do that. So you'll have everything there. If there's any demand for it, any interest in it, then go back and make the separate books and stuff like that, and then eventually just start putting out um, other stuff for it. But yeah, the idea of that it you could sell it to a broad audience, because the broad audience just doesn't exist anymore. It's just these little cliques, and unfortunately, I'm not very popular with any of them. Apparently, Bill doesn't like me very much either, and I don't know why. I haven't really um, done anything in his play other than I never join or contribute to any of these streams because I just don't have any money to. I don't know, but I don't appear to be very popular. I'm a little grouchy, but I'm not that bad. Shit. Well, I don't know. Um, But I don't know. I don't really seem to have much in the way of the popular. I just don't, I don't mind talking about the stuff, but some of the song and dance that comes with trying to get people to join your stuff, like the background here, all these people. I mean, I technically I can have. I don't even know why it's not. I'm supposed to have a background, but some of that stuff. Here we go. See, if I would have had that on, I wouldn't have had the problem I had before. There we go. But one guy says you got to have the right chair and you got to have the right microphone, and I'm thinking I'm trying to figure out how to buy a bigger burrito for lunch. I can't really get all that stuff, nor would I be all that interested into it. To me, this is just a way to facilitate communication. I don't want to be the next Wolfman Jack. If if anybody scores that reference, it's a little bit dated. He was at first, and I think I pissed him off. I don't know what it was. There was a couple of things that I mean, I get fussy when people start going, "That's too complicated" and shit. I don't yell at them. I don't swear at them. I never did anything like that, but I just kind of go, I don't want to, don't tell me everything's kind. You can play these games. Everybody's been able to play it. Stuff like MERP. Oh, it's too unplayable. That's so complicated. It's unplayable. I may not have the best memory, but I remember playing it and having a lot of fun doing it. We got through it when we were a lot younger than we are now. May not want to these days. Okay. But you could. It's not like your capacity is lowered. Yeah, he's doing. I mean, I'm not going to not do the project. I'm just looking at the long term as to how I'm going to get people to want it. I just don't know how. I I the thing with Twitter isn't is I mean, some of it I guess I didn't know what I was doing. I used the um I've had that account for 3 to 5 years, somewhere in there. I It wasn't created with the intention of being a marketing thing or anything like that. It was I'm I'm effing bored and I keep hearing about Twitter. Let's see what it's all about. So it was shit posting, and because I didn't know. And then people are like, well, a lot of people use Twitter for marketing, and that you should, if you're going to start doing business, you should have a Twitter handle. So I'm like, well, I do. So I just kind of use the same thing. Well, it wasn't until later on that I get, oh, they gig you every time you say, you know, the F word or whatever. And then I realize, oh, well, this thing, I'll never get anywhere. And so that was after I spent a bunch of money on it and all that sort of stuff. So uh, I have every other. Well, not every other. I have Instagram, which I'm trying, and um, the Blue Sky and all that stuff to try to get more people involved. I guess I just need to be better at it. And I don't really know what being better at it even entails, or even how to approach being better at it, because I don't know enough about it to be effective. Um, I don't even like I was on Facebook and I'm looking for the retweet button because I'm just, I just want to play Atari. Atari's fun. It's easy. You just put in the cartridge and hit power. If it doesn't work, blow on it and repeat until it works. Um, oh well, thank you, Wallace. I appreciate that. At least I know it has some effect. That's you're the first person to mention that my link tree is effective in any way, shape, or form. So maybe it's just a slow slog. Thank you, because I didn't even know if anybody was getting onto that at all, or if it was even sending people to the right place or anything about it. And then there was a while where Twitter was saying you can't have that on your bio and we'll suppress you if you do and all that. And so I wasn't even sure. Dude Yar's Revenge, one of my personal favorites. Like, yeah, all right. I could just, I can hear the humming right now. The little noise when you hit the guy. Pew, pew, pew. Give me, want to play now? I do post the links to this video, but I think that Twitter just makes them go away because Elon, I understand it's a business. I don't really blame them, but they want it to, they want it to be a casino. They don't want you to leave. So they don't promote the tweets that have your links to other platforms on them. So I don't think they just get out. I don't think that's unfair based on their need for revenue, but I don't really know how to work around it either. Oh, oh, Bill. Well, he did see that. I don't know exactly what it was that seemed to tick him off, but he was a lot like he was more friendly and supportive in the past. And I really haven't. I mean, I'm not in there talking shit or being a troll or anything like that. But I think that maybe the difference in opinions on games and stuff might have irked him or something like that because he did promote my channel at least once or twice. Once, fine. Um, he does reply to me when I type to him in some cases. Um, so I don't know, but I got the feeling that he wasn't happy with the way. Like somebody had said to me, he goes, "Well, you don't really come off very well in type," and I'm sure that's the case. I'm horrible at it, and I'm not very good at expressing myself in these things. So I could easily be misunderstood or say something I think is really funny and then ends up just falling flat or looking dumb. An OF model? I don't know what that is. They can't tell if you're an OF. Oh, you mean like a bot or whatever? That's probably true. They probably think I'm a bot. I I don't. My logo is pretty good though. I think I like it. Oh, OnlyFans. Oh. Well, I'm definitely not doing that. If I had money, I'd be on some other ones watching them. Do you see that one chick? Oh, that Brie Blossom. Woohoo. Oh, I do tell people, hey, come play my. I didn't think he'd mind. I didn't realize that way. That makes sense. I just wanted people to play Star Wars with me. I mean, I didn't think he'd mind about that because he's kind of got a select few people that he plays with anyway on those streams. So, but okay, duly noted. I'm always desperate to play Star Wars. Yeah, I don't. Well, of course, see, I mean, this is like spam. Um, to me, asking people, well, and I mean, it's his call and it's his place, so I don't want to, But to me, spam was always solicitation of a commercial product through electronic mail. That was the way it was originally. So saying, "Hey guys, you just mentioned D6 Star Wars. Would anybody like to play with me on my Discord?" To me wouldn't really constitute. It's not like I'm trying to poach his listeners or anything like that. People just like to play. So I mean, I'll stop doing it. I I wasn't really even sure what made him mad, but I guess maybe that's right. But okay, still want to play Star Wars. This damn cookie, I want to eat it so bad. But okay. Um, but yeah, he did. I did talk to him in DM about briefly about the stuff I showed, which is just a pittance of what I've got comparatively. Well, somebody said I didn't. I don't. He's not. He didn't like I didn't come off well in type to him, and like they knew him, and they kind of got a read that I wasn't his favorite thing or whatever. Um, I did mention that somehow I became unfollowed from him, which, or maybe he just decided to unfollow me, which is completely his prerogative. I'm not really all that into it or worried about who follows me that much. But I did bring it up to him, and his reaction was annoyance. So I got the feeling, oh, you don't really like me at all. But no, I did talk to him. Well, talk. I did. He said, "Show me what you got. Show me the box tops you have." So I did. I showed him. I sent him a couple of pictures over the Discord, and he said, "Well, that's really neat. Those are cool. It's neat that you have those things." But what I did mention to him about a year ago, I said, "Hey, I've got original artwork, and I'd like to have you look at that." Because I thought he might be able to associate it with a particular project. I was told that it was artwork from a project that never got made by TSR, but was considered. And I never got to find out what project, because the person that told me that, my uncle, passed away before he was able to make that inquiry or recall it. At the time he told me this, he was quite ill with, excuse me, cancer. And I thought maybe Bill might know. If Bill didn't know, I was gonna ask Rob and Zeb Cook too, and I figured one of them would know. Yeah, he followed me. Well, here's what happened. He followed me for a long time, and whether he does or doesn't is it's really not that big of a deal. But I sometimes this thing, I don't lock it when I put it in. I always Sometimes I forget that you've got to lock the screen before you put it in your pocket, and I put it in my pocket, and it hit a bunch of buttons as I was walking, and one of them was block Bill. So I had to unblock him and refollow him. And I tried to explain that to him, and he just kind of looked at me. And he just kind of was like, I could see his face. He's like, "What the hell are you even talking about?" And I go, "That's not." I said, "Never mind. It doesn't matter if you follow me or not." He's not watching it anyway. A lot of people will do on Twitter, I found out, is they'll give you the courtesy follow, which is nice, but they don't give a shit what you're saying. Like I got a lot of veteran people that as soon as they see that I'm a veteran, they'll give me the follow. It's like a standard courtesy that a lot of veterans do to other veterans, but they have absolutely no interest in gaming or RPGs, so they'll mute me, which I understand. But what I found out is that actually hurts you more than if they just didn't follow you at all. So that's another thing that kind of hurt the account. And what are you going to do? They're trying to be helpful and supportive. So no, Zeb's. I don't know that Zeb's on X, but I can still contact him. So I was gonna I was gonna do it a roundabout way and see if he wanted to see that stuff, or if he would be willing to help based on the fact that it's this, that, or the other thing. So um, turns out Rob probably knows my uncle too, and I was led to believe that Zeb would recognize my uncle. So I was gonna have that contacted. I know a guy that was friends with my uncle, and when he worked with TSR, and his name was Mike Martin. He was the VP of sales for TSR. I think it was sales, marketing, whatever, sales and marketing. Anyways, one of the VPs at the time, and he was gonna help me make the contact with Zeb. But I was going to send the pictures to Rob too. But Rob says I might not know. Yeah, well, and there's another reason why I was going to have Mike make the contact for me. Yeah, so I didn't want to have any of that happen. Though Zeb doesn't know me from a hole in the ground. I met him, but he wouldn't remember. That was what 30 some years ago, and it was just, "Hi, Mr. Cook. I like what you do. I'm a fan." It was just one of those geek handshake things at a con. Hundreds of people that can say they technically met him, and not like I sat down and had drinks with him or anything. So, uh, but yeah, Mike was going to hook me up with that so I could get some answers. Now I was going to show people that stuff and maybe put it up for sale. Um, see what it was, There's some other stuff in there, some box tops and other printed stuff and things like that. There's also a copy of Dungeon, and I was thinking of a completely the computer game. They made a computer game Dungeon, and he gave me one full copy of that, and I was thinking of selling that, but on in retrospect, I think I'd rather play it. Even though it's an Apple IIe thing, I can still find a way to do it. Right, exactly that kind of, yeah. And I can say that about a lot of guys from TSR. One of the neat things I got to do was be introduced to all those guys, outside of having to wait in line largely because of Mike Martin and other people like that worked with my uncle. And they would come in, usually on Saturday, just before cocktail hour. They'd come into Gen Con. They'd walk around. It was part of the business relationship. They would walk around the thing, and they'd search me out. And Mike go, "Okay, do you want to meet Gary? Do you want to meet Zeb? Do you want to meet Rob?" Whoever was handy at the time, and they'd go and take me to wherever those individuals were, and I'd have a personal one-to-one introduction with them, which was super cool. So, but nothing, what, like I said, it wasn't dinner or anything like that. They just take me to some back room and go, "Hey, this is an employee's kid. Let him, or nephew," and then do that. So that was one of the cool things I got to do. But yeah, I'm not opposed to reaching out to young people or anything like that, or talking with anybody, as long as they're not hostile. It's not. I mean, if Bill wants to talk or wants to see that stuff, that's great. I don't have any animosity. I just got the vibe that I was cheesing him off. Wasn't trying to. So, but I never had any problem with most people. Those Broser folks, though, that was where I kind of had a problem. I'm going to eat this damn cookie, folks. Sorry. I'm hypoglycemic. I have to eat it. But yeah, I didn't do well with them. But it's not a difficult thing, and it's not all that hard to explain the game that I'm making. I have a hit chart combat system. That's probably the worst obstacle to get around, because people make some assumptions about that. But I use it as a 2-hit thing. So you have a die face for each part: arm, leg, head, chest, stomach, stuff like that. But there's also die facings that have no body part assigned, and those are a miss. And I have them set up so that what I believe would be the most statistically likely are put in those on those die facings, and the others arranged properly. And you just, that's how it goes really fast. Everybody goes, "Oh, they've slowed the game down," and all that sort of stuff. And my experience has been the exact opposite, that they make things a lot easier than having to calculate THACO or anything like that. um, I fortunately have never gotten, except for Costigan. He's the only guy that got onto my ass about politics. Greg Costigan at Gen Con. And I wasn't even a political conversation. I was playing a war game and I made some remark about Ronnie Reagan. We were playing something about the Gulf of Sidra in '86. And he and I didn't give a shit. And but that was the only one I can remember, at least of game designers or anything like that, that got snotty over politics. I mean, some attendee that might have mentioned it at one point or something like that, but Costigan, and he would do it a lot, from what I understood. Hello, Kelly. Folks, that's my sister. She comes in to say hi when I do these. So, but yeah, Greg was the only guy that hassled me, and it was about Reagan. He wasn't that bad about it, but he was kind of annoying, and he wouldn't stop. So, he was kind of fanatic. But I got to meet a lot of those guys over the years, so it was neat. Dunnigan, got to meet him, and Chadwick. These are war game guys. But anyway, the game isn't, a lot of it does come from West End games, because that is my personal favorite. So it's just skill check stuff where you have a skill check number and you have a modifier to your roll, and you're trying to beat that skill number in order to complete the task. And the better you get, the higher your modifier, the easier it is to complete the task. And as far as combat, like I said, it's the charts. It makes it super easy. Right, what I do instead is you have a comparative number versus armor. And somebody said it the other day. They like, this is what I want. It was, I mean, I'm not going for just one person. One person very accurately described what I was doing. And it was, God, I wish I could find that. Maybe I can find it. But anyway, the armor, your attack minus the armor, and the difference is the severity of hit. So instead of rolling dice, you get an answer much quicker. As far as rolling on some damage table or anything like that. The thing I did is I didn't want to be counting. The whole hit point thing gets a little stale, and I've swung and hit you with my +1 sword. I've scored 8 points of damage, and it was this bucket of points that you either filled up or had to empty, and all that. And I got tired of that, so I wanted to do something different. And in my thing, it's a severity of wound, from something superficial to something final, that kills you. So it's a much bloodier game. It's a little bit quicker. It'll make you think twice about getting into combat, because even if you take on somebody who you could outclass, that doesn't mean that there might not be some lucky shot. You might walk away winning, but you might walk away ugly. Take one in the eye or something like that. So it creates a thematic description of battle as opposed to a bunch of people doing accounting work where they're adding and subtracting numbers that are hit points. That's why I did it that way. So, but I really didn't, me and Michael were talking earlier. I wasn't really considering the younger people that much because I expected this to be an OSR type of thing. I figured it would appeal to the people that, there seems to be such a disconnect between everybody in every class. There's the, you name it. Well, I'm not OSR, or I like to play narrative games versus crunchy versus fluffy versus old school versus new, 5e versus that. And everybody's so super classified. I wasn't, I don't think there's any way to get something that crosses all those different boundaries. So, and I had a lot of people going, well, just make what you want to play. Just the only way you can do this right is if you do what you want to do and do it the way you want to do it. So I just chose that because I thought it was a faster and more interesting alternative to the norm of hit point counting. Yeah. And I was talking to Rob, and I says, really, all you need, and he agreed. He says, all you need for any of these games, I mean, taking marketing out of it, granted, but all you need is a way to account for determining the outcome of any action you take in the game that doesn't have a 100% chance of failure or a 100% chance of success. Some probability generator, like whatever, dice and stuff like that, and combat mechanics. Beyond that, pretty much you can come up with everything. Now, I've got guidelines and other rules and things like that, but they're not super strict and they're not super detailed. I all through the book that I'm putting out, I emphasize these are good starting points. It's really a sandbox thing, but I really like the idea of the GM making rulings versus the having to interpret a rule book for everything, especially in a time where a lot of people like to use the acronym TLDR a lot. Yeah. So, and then I have this, and I know, so this is because there's flesh wound, there's a very light wound. So one of the things in playtesting that came up was, okay, well, if I just keep causing flesh wounds, nothing else happens. And I thought about it, and I go, at some point, there's going to have to be a limiting factor. No matter how insignificant a cut is, if you have 30 insignificant cuts, sooner or later they're going to start to become somewhat significant, right? So I came up with wound level, and then the first thing people said is, well, now you've just said hit points with two different words. Okay, you got me, but that's the death by 1,000 cuts kind of safety net. So if you exceed wound level, and sure, it's hard to argue against the statement that that's just a different way to say hit points. Okay, then there's a loss. So, but there can also be, instead of critical hits and double damage and all that, there can be, I cleave that guy's arm right off with my giant battle axe because I hit him just, I got that good solid connect and hit him right in the right spot. So you can have this kind of instant death. I wanted it to be very bloody because another reason why is because it's not just fantasy that we're doing. And I wanted it to be low fantasy to start with, but I'm also, this thing can do anything. It can be sci-fi or Western or whatever. And I wanted to make sure that when you play a war game or you play Western or something like that, you weren't walking around with 5 or 6 bullets in you. It's not that people can live through that. Sometimes they can. Tupac, people like that. But generally, exposing yourself to high rates of gunfire tends to be a fatal mistake. So I wanted it to be a very quick and bloody game. Right. So there's that. But the way I explained it to people is this: I don't want the player to be Bruce Willis in Die Hard. I want it to be, um, you know, something where being hit, being cut counts. And for more than just, okay, now I have to take a few points off my ledger, but as soon as I can go, get touched by the right guy, I can add them back. It's not that you can't be healed in my game, but you have, again, situations where there could be modern combat where healing comes from applying, first aid or something like that. So there's a healing skill, and there's healing tools like med packs in some games and stuff like this. Not like you can't still take a healing potion or have a cleric lay hands on you. That's still part of the fantasy game, but you can't just. There's that one picture that everybody uses. It's a battlefield medicine picture from medieval times, and it's this guy that's got like wounds all over him to describe how they work, and then the meme says 1 hit point left. I didn't want that. I didn't want people walking around with just a hit point because all I've got to do is score that last one to kill them. I wanted it to be a little more realistic. So, but there are people that have 1 hit point. There's minions. I have a section about minions, monsters who have minions. So the boss might be harder to kill, but if he's some monster that has a necromancy ability or something like that, you might be one-shotting a bunch of hobgoblin undead or something like that. So I brought that into it. But largely it's just those hit charts, and they work pretty good. It gives you a 2-hit right off the bat, and it gives you a 2-hit in a particular place, and those it can be permanent. Like another thing a person told me about marketing is you can't please everybody all the time, and if you're going to go with the adage that make what you want is the only way to make something good, you also have to go and look at the idea that some people are going to come up to you and be like, this isn't a good game because this, or I want this in a game or something like that. And you have to go, well, it's not for everybody, because some people don't like the idea of losing a limb as a character or something like that. To them, they feel that, well, if I've lost a limb, then I might as well be dead because I can't do this, that, or the other thing. In some cases, that's true, but I liked that strong risk that came with it. Just keeps people from jumping into combat over every little thing, and it works as a narrative device for things outside of fantasy. Well, it works for fantasy too, but I don't know. So that was my choice with that. I had considered doing something similar to OD&D and providing an alternative combat or something like that. But then I thought, if you're going to give them a choice that you think they'd prefer better, than just give them that in the first place. And I just really like the idea of these charts. I think if people give them a chance, they'll see what I'm talking about. And one of the ways I wanted to do that, to promote the game, was to have an arena battle where people who are interested in learning how this all flows as a combat system can roll up a quick character and just get right into a fight. And we make it kind of like a gladiator tournament. Okay, player A and player B go at each other, and you learn the system by doing, and you have a little bit of a tournament on top of it. Who lasts and who gets carried off in pieces on their shield or whatever, things like that. So that was my idea with it. I do have a playthrough of it in, but it's World War II, and that was with my co-host Magenta. So I have lost 3 people in the last 20 minutes. That's not good. I I wish I would take more. I don't know. I don't know if the hit chart thing. It's I don't know if that's what's doing it. But that's the kind of thing that really bugs me because you have this stereotype about something, but it's from what? I mean, have you ever like I've seen other games that have it. I saw a Old West game that had it. It was really fun. You had this circular kind of reticle, and you rolled on that to determine where you hit the guy when you were shooting at him. I think it was called Aces. What was it, something Aces and something? I forget. It was a long time ago that I saw this, but it looked really cool, and I was like, "This seems like so much better than going, okay, what's the armor class versus mine, and looking at some cross reference chart and all that sort of stuff." You just bam, you knew right away where did it. Not only did I hit him, where did I hit him? You see exactly where that shot went, and I thought that was really a neat way to do it because instead of you can be as a DM, you can be like, "All right, you you swung your mighty blade and cleaved that, the head right off that evil orc or whatever, something like Aces and Eights. That's the one, yeah." And it was super cool. It was like right away you knew. So I did that with World War II, and it worked really good. We just did a video, me and not too long ago, me and the Magenta, the co-host, about it. And she was talking about it, and she said it really produced a real dramatic effect. There was two of her. She was commanding a squad of paratroopers, and 2 of her guys had to cross a street in the dark, um, and they didn't. There was the enemy was out hiding. They didn't see it. They crossed the street, and the enemy saw it and fired a burst from a machine gun. One guy was hit in the ankle, the other guy was hit in the gut. So the guy hit in the ankle, he made his way out of the line of fire. The guy that was hit in the gut went down like a sack of potatoes and was bleeding out. And somebody had to go get him and pull him out of the fire. Well, he ended up getting hit too, but only in the shoulder. So he and another guy finally got him out of the area, out of the line of fire and all that. And she said it was a really dramatic way of doing it. She says this is much more like a movie than I thought. It wasn't mechanical, and there wasn't a bunch of numbers and stuff like that. This was telling a story. And then because they were paratroopers on D-Day, they were a group of people from a couple of different units. There was no medic, so they didn't have a lot of medical training. So trying to save the gut shot guy didn't work. And so he, unfortunately for them, bled out. They wrapped up the guy with a bad ankle, and they put him somewhere safe because he couldn't make the run at the target. So it created a whole role-playing drama for them, as opposed to, oh, your guy just took a few points of damage or took 100 points of damage, isn't dead and stuff like that. So I really like the results that it creates in the game. So that's why I chose it. It's proven to work out real well if people give it a chance. I don't know how to get them to give it a chance other than to try it. At least have enough open-mindedness to look at it a little bit. Yeah. So, and it goes further once you get. I mean, I'm making the basic game. As far as the rules tome, When I say basic game, I mean the RPG part of it, but there's a domain. You could do war games with it too. I mean, what we were playing was kind of a war game RPG hybrid. We played it on Tabletop Simulator with a bunch of miniatures. There was tanks and stuff. It was like playing a war game, but all the guys had names and some personality to them. They just weren't some toy soldiers that were pushing around. So it was kind of had that RPG element to it. And so I have domain play, which is just like a giant war game. Um, I have mass battles scenarios. I have several worlds for it. I have random dungeon creation. I have a thing called the Wayfair system, which you can roll up an entire adventure. There's world creation charts, random, make random rolls and create a whole continent. Tells you what terrain is in the next. You can use them for terrain or hex crawls too. So lots of support that way that I put in with it as well. The magic's a little different than most things, a little bit different. I went a different route with that. Some of the stuff I chose because I just got tired of every game being the same. You know, one fantasy retro clone, and they all seem so. Instead of individuals, well, what you do is you have a list of tomes that you know, which are spell books, and they have about 5 or 6 spells in each of them. And uh, you increase in skill, the spell becomes more powerful or can last longer or something like that. You increase levels in the spell instead of achieving new spells per level. So you might be able to do something that would be like a 9th level spell in D&D, but if you're a low level, you aren't going to do it well. There's also a system for um, spell checks in that the spell might not do anything but blow up in your face or fizzle because you're new and you might not do it right. But as you gain experience, those mishaps become less and less likely. That's a kind of a different approach I took towards the magic. I can't see anything. Well, I used to be able to see Rumble, but they did something. And if people are talking to me through Rumble and I haven't been paying attention, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that that was causing an issue. I can change that real quick by taking a peek. But as far as X, that's X. Um, they don't let me see people unless they're verified or something like that. So there's that problem. Um, but the system I'm using right now, I can see Twitch and YouTube. I'm not using Rumble currently. Again, they made some issue out of that, and I can't get it to work yet. So, what else with the game? That's about it. Just working on making sure that all of the text makes sense, is spelled correctly, the grammar's good. I don't want to look like some illiterate buffoon. I did make some tweaks and some changes because I, I just saw some things that I thought, hey, maybe I should change. But uh, I don't know. But that's another reason I thought it would be bad for kids because, or the youngers at least, because the instant gratification thing is so strong that even the perception that, hey, I can't, I mean, you get the result right away. How hard did you hit versus how much armor do they have? The difference is how much damage you did. It's literally just comparing numbers, but um, but I kind of got the feeling that because it was something that seems to be grounded in older mechanics, people would either go, "Oh, that's old and primitive for crotchety old people," or "It's too complicated." Because I looked at that old D&D and it was filled with words and stuff or whatever. I don't know. I just so I just but um, I got a monster section. Um, the hit charts differ based on the size and the shape of the monster. There's hit charts for bipeds. There's hit charts for quadrupeds, and I don't know what the word for eight legs is, but those peds too. And then there's basically what I did is I instead of doing it for every monster, I took all the basic shapes. Um, you know, humanoids on two legs, cows and bulls and stuff on four legs, or even dragons, depending on the size and all that. And then stuff that floats around like an elemental that's just a big circular looking type of thing. I've got stuff for that. Stuff for, things that are like ooze or don't have any shape at all, like a boneless. And then there's some aquatic ones as well, different types of fish and octopuses or octopi, or I think it's octopi, but those kind of things. So uh, all you do is pick the one that's of the shape that you're attacking, and roll 3d6 to see where you hit it or if you hit it at all. And the weapon you're using will tell you how hard you hit it. And its stats will tell you how much armor it has to mitigate the damage that you do. Your damage can be modified by certain attributes, strength and skill and stuff like that in some cases. And of course, magic items can increase it as well. That kind of deal. So, but it is it's a little bit more difficult. It's a little less forgiving. Um, as far as combat, and it's real easy to get burned unless you know what you're doing. Now, there's ways to. The other thing is it's not this. You're always engaged. You have all sorts of means of defensive maneuvers, even if you're not the attacking person in some cases. You can set for charge, you can dodge, you can do stuff like that. So there isn't one of these, okay, well, I made my turn, I rolled my attack, and now I've got to wait for five other people in the party and the monsters, and this round robin where you're wasting 20 minutes or more waiting for everybody else to do theirs. Even if you're not the attacking phasing player, there's things going on that you need to pay attention to. So the people will always be engaged when combat goes on. It's trying to achieve more of a simultaneity that way. So there's ways to mitigate damage beyond just wearing armor. There's dodging and maneuvers and things like that. But and what it ends up doing is if you're a player and you make it through the first few levels, you're going to feel very lucky and very accomplished. You'll be it'll mean something to be higher level, more so than in other games, because you'll be lucky to get there. But you also have to be somebody that isn't going to get completely married to a character just as you make it. Like if it upsets you to lose people, you might not like this one because you're likely to lose a lot of people, especially in the lower levels. No, that that was just me griping at the concept. What I was trying to do is get to people to answer what the big deal about doing that is. But no, I haven't. I didn't make silhouettes for a couple of reasons. I had more than one. I actually did have a couple of feedback groups, and that was one of the few times I got a more than one person to give me feedback. And most people said they didn't like the silhouettes because they were hard to read and all that. I also asked about custom dice instead of using a chart, just having dice that have different hit locations on it. And everybody almost unanimously said, don't do that. I don't want to have to order new dice if I lose one or run out or want more. It's obnoxious to deal with custom, plus they become more expensive. So they said, no, do it on charts. So I did. I initially thought about silhouettes too, but many people said they didn't like it because they became difficult to read in a lot of cases. Okay. Whoever Vid is, I'm very sorry that I can't see you. I don't know exactly why. If you're on X, that's probably why. But as you want to know how the hit system works or the combat system, basically what you have is you have a chart for the body type. Let's just keep it easy as far as an example and go with a humanoid like an orc or something like that. So you have a chart, a small chart that gives head, arms, legs, chest, stomach, and groin. Yep, and I believe feet. And you roll to hit. Your skill and any other, well, your skill is for the hit, and that modifies. So the better your skill, the more likely you are to hit something meaningful. With a sword, you're looking, to hit something in here largely. So you're more likely to go to the center with the better skill you are. And several things affect damage: speed of the weapon, type of weapon, some of your attributes, and if it's magic, things like that. So your damage is compared to the armor protection, if any, or the natural armor, if it's some scaled monster or whatever. But that armor mitigates the damage. The difference between the two is the severity of damage that you do. Is that clear? I hope. Is he on Google? I should be able to see everybody on Google. Hmm. I've had this happen before. I go to a particular chat from an individual. Oh, I just fucked up. Did I hit the wrong thing? No. I go to a particular, pardon the French, to this place on YouTube, and there's one dude from Germany that can never see me, and vice versa. And I don't know why. I've never blocked him, but I don't know, glitch or something. But if you give me the full screen name, maybe I can fix it. Yeah, that's weird. That's weird. The full game overview, okay, but the full game overview is this. It is I guess, generic. There's so many jargon words. I don't know which one to use, but I call it generic. Genre non-specific, genre agnostic, whatever. It's designed to play whatever. fantasy, sci-fi, western, modern, horror, whatever. Um, I usually talk about the fantasy stuff because it just seems to me, from the perception I get online, that more people play fantasy than any other genre. So when I explain things, I usually use fantasy analogies or examples because it tends to resonate with more people. But the basic, I have a two hit chart system that I explained, and then there's as far as anything else like skill checks, it's basically like West End games in that you have uh, a easy, moderate, hard, heroic level. So like me making a half court free throw is like heroic because I'm not a baller. So based on how difficult the thing is how high the score that you have to beat with your skill in order to achieve it. And the, your skill has a modifier based on how many levels you have in it. It's completely skill based. There are attributes, but they're not like D&D attributes. You roll between 3 and 5 attributes. They give you some benefits, and that's it. They don't grow or reduce or anything like that necessarily. There's a couple things that can change them, but largely no. So it's very heavily skill based. So you roll against the difficulty of the skill to see if you achieve it. That's basically it. There are saving throws, but it's not like D&D where you have saving throws for every like a bunch of categories. There's a saving throw table, and the difficulty is a modifier. I'm old school. I do a lot of the modifier stuff. I had never found that stuff difficult. I found it easier and more clear just to do that, and it gives me the latitude I need to achieve what I want with the system. So I use that. So you don't have a save for well, you need to take a save if you say drank poison, but some poison's more potent than others. So it might just be a straight saving throw if it's just some generic cheap poison. But if it's something super exotic or super potent, maybe made by some alchemist or an evil witch or something like that, it might be a saving throw -3 or something like that, as an example. So it's all 3d6. Well, it's 3d6 based. As far as, I mean, is there times where you throw a different die for a couple of things, but mostly it's 3d6 based. I like the probability curve. A lot of people said they wanted that, so I went that way with it. The title Paracosmic Convergence, that's just, I learned that term not too long ago, and I decided to apply it. Paracosmic just means an imaginary world. Like Middle Earth is a paracosm, and what I encourage people to do that make campaign worlds or something for the system is to put at least one porthole in it that leads to another world. And paracosmic convergence. Make it very hard to find, and give some way of the players discovering how to find it and where it leads to inside what you make. I can't force you to do that, obviously, but that was what I was hoping for, and create kind of a mosaic of all these different worlds created by different individuals, but they're all connected by this by these portholes. I don't know, it really covers it. It has a different magic system. I guess I should tell you about that. The magic system, you don't learn you learn tomes, which are just magic books. And based on the attributes you roll up and a couple of choices during character creation, um, you can have like up to 7 of these books. And they all contain between 5 and 8 spells. And you gain levels in those spells as you use them. Instead of attaining new spells per level, you just have this inventory, and the ones you use or want to focus on as far as training and skills, they become more potent and more likely to succeed. When you first start out using a spell, there's a fairly strong chance it won't work. It'll fizzle out, or it might go haywire on you. And as you get better, that likelihood decreases. Some of the worst things that can happen to you if you really screw up a spell is it can cause mutations or corrupt you or something like that. So I like the idea of having a bumbling wizard type of thing. It's a trope that I've seen in some old things, but you won't be bumbling for long. It just shows that you're new and you're playing with a powerful force that you're just learning how to control. But as you increase in experience, you'll be able to control it more. And then eventually you'll be able to make customized spells or increase the effectiveness of spells that you have. You can increase duration, increase how many targets it are involved, increase damage in some cases, things like that, extend range in certain cases, stuff like that. So it makes for a little bit of customization. But as far as the fantasy part of it is okay. Was that a good explanation? Did I bore him to run off? High pressure sales. How did I do? Oh, thanks for saying. I don't know. No. I'm trying. I'm new to this, folks. Is he staying, or are you? Well, shit, everybody's leaving. I sure wish this thing would give me a more detail about who is where. It doesn't really tell me very much. All I see is that there's 3 people watching me on YouTube and 1 person watching me on Twitch. I can't see what their names are or anything like that. I'm sorry if I seem unfriendly as a host. It's not my intention. I just don't have equipment that gives me a lot of information. I don't know how to get it. I'm glad it worked out. Thank you. I'm sorry about the communication thing. I don't have any idea. I've never blocked anybody or anything like that, so I don't know why it's working that way. Okay. Thanks. Hopefully it worked. Hopefully I did a good job explaining. Was that a good job explaining? Gotta get better at that, I guess. Maybe I should have some notes. Here's the thing. I tried reading off of scripts, writing a script, and I did that a couple of times, and people watched it and they're like, it's so obvious you're reading off of something. And I tried to do it naturally, and I just wasn't very good at it. And then I got the lady co-host. And when I did that, I'm great with conversation. I'm not great with presentation. Sitting up here alone trying to soapbox to people that ain't my bag. Okay, good. Yeah. So what else? I forgot to do initiative. there's a list of things um, that you can choose to do during combat, and you pick from that list for each round. It doesn't have to be just one, but the more you do, the more negative modifiers you get. So yes, if you've never played West End games, I have to explain everything. If you've ever played West End games, Star Wars or Ghostbusters or something, um, then you're like, well, shit, did you? But it's very similar to that. So you choose what you want to do, and then the round commences. Who goes first depends. Like, is there an ambush situation or a potential ambush situation? Is there any reason why somebody might be able to get the jump on somebody for all sorts of reasons? That's considered. And then you check for that if it's there. And that's done by, um, perception checks or whatever needs to be done. And then it just goes to whether you have swift, which is a skill for speed, kind of similar to dexterity. Well, it's not really similar to dexterity because it doesn't have anything to do with shooting anything, but it has to do with being quick on your feet. And your weapon speed, which all that is just a modifier to your potential initiative, stuff like that. And you don't even have to know that. All you have to do is tell the DM what your weapon is, and he or she should be able to figure that out. And based on that, they'll give you kind of a list of who's going first and all that. It's supposed to happen almost near simultaneous. So people say, well, if it's simultaneous, what if we're doing this? If I'm swinging, he's swinging, who's hitting who? Well, that depends on weapon speed and stuff like that. So that's all figured out by the DM. But it does create a more simultaneous interaction. Gives people an opportunity to react all the time. So it really is something where the best way to do it is to get 3 or 4 willing souls, maybe 2 or 3 at the minimum, and have them just do some combat scenarios on film or on video. Just get people to do it, and they can see. And might be able to get that worked out with some folks. But yeah, best way to do it. So trying to think what else there is. The mass battles, been through that already. There's flight rules, airplanes or dragons, stuff like that. I really don't have anything I didn't think of as far as there's even rules for chase scenes and things like that. But when I say rules, they're not super stringent. They're not super detailed. They're just some guidelines. It really is open up to let the DM kind of come up with the way they want to do things. Oh yeah, there's flight rules and there is fight rules. There's grappling and bar. That's why I have groin. Everybody thinks it's Beavis and Butthead childish, but I don't think it is. Fighting dirty's fighting. So you can take one in the jewels. But the flight rules are fairly simple. There's maneuver, there's speed, there's fire control. So you can have dog fights. You can do it with dragons. Their fire control is just their ability, their skill with their breath weapon or whatever they're using. But if it's some machine, it's more about their avionics or whatever. But just like other combat, you set what you're going to do before the round starts. Are you going to bank? Are you going to climb? You know, what kind of maneuver are you going to make? And what is the other guy going to do? So you have to be able to anticipate what the other guy is going to do to stay behind them and tail them and all that sort of stuff. And the rest is just like the other combat. There's a 2-hit chart, wings, tail, depending on where you're aiming, that kind of thing. And then there's the damage, and that's based on what you're using. Big missile's going to have a higher number, and that kind of thing. Well, that's where everything is set in such a way where size can make a difference, and it's not just size, it's toughness. So so you can have a mix. The system keeps everything in check with one another, with a system of scales and stuff like that. So you have a wound level based on your approximate size relative to everything else. But also, when you get into modern stuff, it can be based on your mass. So a tank has a higher punishment level to deal, so you can have, let's go, what he's saying here. So a World War I German tank and dragons attacking. So the tank's gun, if it hits the dragon, which actually wouldn't, if it's World War I, it's not that likely. But if it hits the dragon, it's likely to do significant damage, because it's going to have a higher base damage than the armor of the dragon. But it's got piss poor fire control, and the likelihood of shooting in the air is almost nil, that high. So the breath weapons can do different things based on how well you roll as far as targeting by the dragon. You might get that the flame or the chlorine gas or whatever it is, lightning, into one of the firing slots or something like that with a good roll, and affect the crew inside or something of that nature. So what else? And if you have like a Star Wars blaster, well, then people go, well, if you got more modern equipment, then you're going to win all the time. Not necessarily. Sure, you have a blaster that might do some damage, some significant, not necessarily significant, but if you got Han Solo's blaster, it's not that much more than a pistol, but it's more than a modern pistol. So is it going to one-shot a dragon? No. But you might be able to take a dragon down with enough hits. But that doesn't preclude that dragon from being able to outmaneuver you. If you miss, it can still breathe its fire on you. It can still attack you in all sorts of ways as a person. So just because you have a science fiction laser gun and you're doesn't mean that dragon is doomed. So it all works out with the way the combat system was. And I'd like to do that demonstration too, because that's when I tell people that it does more than one genre, and I talk about the portholes. That's when everybody goes, that can't possibly work. If you're walking into modern society with a broadsword in your hand, you'll never live. Well, there's a couple of things. Never bring a knife to a gunfight, fair enough, but you're not completely helpless. And when you cross these portholes, you should only do so when you have at least some idea as to what's on the other side, so you can prepare for it and learn about it. is there clearly defined rules for figuring out things like armor on a tank or, say, a starfighter and how people inside may or may not be affected? Yeah, yeah. There's like a tank has all the different facings. Front, side, turret, hull, that kind of stuff. And each one of those facings on that chart or sections has a defense number, and that represents its armor. So if you're, let's take like a 25 millimeter boys anti-tank rifle, which is a piss poor early World War II anti-tank weapon that wasn't worth a shit, and you try to shoot that at a 1944 German Tiger, plink, your attack value for that dinky pea shooter versus the defensive number of that Tiger, you'll never do a lot of damage, because that's like throwing a rock at that monster. It wasn't very good. But if you're using like a 76 millimeter American anti-tank gun, that changes things. If you hit it in the right spot, you probably do some significant damage. And there is a critical hit type of situation when it comes to tanks and things like that. So if you're hitting something on the hull of a Tiger tank and you get a critical hit, that changes things, because what that represents is you've hit the driver's or the assistant gunner's slot, which is like a weak point. That's your critical hit. So it has a lower defense value than the rest of the armor. But only if you get that critical hit will that happen. But yeah, it does explain. But let's say you hit that, you get that critical hit with a flamethrower. Then what you've done is you've gotten that jet of flame through that firing slot, and it's burning the people inside, as opposed to penetrating or damaging the armor. Not that a flamethrower it does more damage to the armor than people think, but for intensive purposes, for the purposes of the attack that we're talking about, it's about getting that sweet spot. And so the rules for the flamethrower would explain how you've cooked Fritzy inside his own tank with that flamethrower. So yeah, it's got all that stuff. So you can do all sorts of stuff with it. It really becomes a very theatrical. Like I said, I've tried to stay close to West End Games, which was trying to achieve that theatrical feel. And that's what I was going for with the combat system. So it's just a little bit different, because I just didn't want to be another boilerplate, here's your D20 or whatever, type of game. I wanted some mechanics to stand out as unique, because I thought that people were interested in trying different ways of doing the same thing. Some people seem like aficionados of that sort of stuff. And I just wanted to be unique. Plus, I think it's a better way to do it. I used to play that way with things on my own. That's where I came up with the idea. Yeah. And I think the two things. It's very hard to not get into a debate or argument. It's very hard to win when people make declarative statements in threads about, well, that's too complicated or whatever. But it's harder to argue when you have 2 or 3 people on a live or even on a taped show going, all right, I'm here just to learn. Teach me how to do it. Let's go through it and play it. And they go, wow, this is really cool. Like the old Pepsi challenge shit or something. I think that is a better way to sell things, in my opinion. It just seems like it's harder for people to go, that guy don't know nothing. They can see it in action. Plus, it's clear they can understand what they're looking at. They can understand how it works. That's why I was always trying to get people to. That's why I was always begging people to play games. I mean, I like to play Star Wars just for fun, but I was trying to get people to play a lot of games because I wanted to record it and then use it as a kind of a commercial where I go, here's some people playing this game and they think it's great. They think it's easy. It's fun. It's not hard or complicated. But I couldn't get people to play the fucking games because I don't have the time, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's why I want to do it. So, and I just thought it would be fun to do it because I still think I do want to do the mix where there's, I'll have to find a way to, do that too. I like to make it thematic. So I was going to do one where it was like maybe like a King Arthur's tournament, where they were doing jousting and then they were doing the thing with the knights in battle on the ground and all that sort of stuff, and that you could learn how all that stuff works and see it in action. But just taking like what you wrote. Here's a TIE fighter and a biplane and a guy with a 6-shooter from 1843 or whatever. Yeah, that's what I was, do that sort of shit. So, and just play it out. So sometimes that lady that co-hosts with me, she's into that and she'll do it, and other times she won't. So it's kind of hard. I was just trying to find some people that were willing to volunteer for that. But the other way, and was I do have an intro adventure that I wrote for fantasy called the Zymax's Tower. And that was another way. Just play the adventure for people. It's a fantasy adventure, but it's got a little bit of mass, not huge. It's no big war game or anything like that, but there is a little skirmish war game portion to it, just to kind of show that off. And the rest is about being hired by a local royal, like a local king, to sneak out into this enchanted wood that's being occupied and invaded by an orcish horde, and get to this tower, a wizard's tower. The king had made this deal with this mysterious wizard to create a gigantic magical barrier to keep the orcs out. And it was going well for a long time. And then they lost contact with the wizard, and the barrier started to decay in places. And the orcs started to go through the holes in the barrier and start raiding the place again. So he needs some brave adventurers to go out and try to find what happened to this wizard and see if he'll fix the barrier for him or something. So you go out into this tower, and it's yeah. Well, yeah, that's the other thing we were doing, to try to use all sorts of different timelines and different genres, is we were doing world creation videos where me and her name is Robin, but everybody just call her Magenta because she's kind of private. But anyway, her and some people that were regular guests for a while, we were coming up with these. In fact, the map that you see behind me is the world, and we were making it up. And then we were going to do one for sci-fi, and we are going to do one for horror, and one for modern and all that, and then put them together so that you could see players going from one genre to the other in the same campaign. Of course, that might take a long time, but the idea was to see that you could move around to different things. You might be a fantasy, and somehow you wander into some Western or something like that. There's other ways to do it. There's other ways to mix the genres up to see how it works and things like that. So, but most people ask the same question: how am I going to win if they have laser guns and I don't? There's ways. There's ways you can do, but it definitely isn't a game that screams balance. Oh, and then there's the character creation. Um, we should do that some more too. We kind of got long and winded and chatty when we were doing the creation of the characters, but it's really kind of a mixture. I took a little bit of the life path, I took a little bit of the point build, and I took a little bit of the random generation types of character creation, and I put them all together. So one of the things I want to do with character creation is make sure that there was no need for people to write some gigantic backstory. I hate that. Everybody hates that. But I wanted there to be a backstory with characters because it has a lot more relevance in this game than a lot of others claim that it does. So I came up with a system that just answers a few key questions and spits out a very small paragraph backstory that has things that are usable by the character and the DM in the game. And there's advantages, disadvantages, and motivations, and all these build up the personality of the player. There's also social class. This tells everything you need to know about the about the life of the character before they started adventuring, including why they started adventuring, and it also picks some of their initial skills and stuff. So nobody has to go writing no, fairy tale about their character and handing it in. They just got this little system. So the character creation is kind of a journey of its own for everybody. It's a good setup. Yeah, yeah. She said the same thing. She says you should put the charts in. Um, yeah, I'll get another one going. I did one with another guy that's a little less lengthy and more to the point. But yeah, um, but I'd like to do those world creation. And there's another one. She was into it for a while, and then something happened. She couldn't do it, and it all faded away. And I'd like to go back to doing those. Those were a lot of fun, and they they're a great way to sell, and they're a great way to make. Once you're done with a world, I take the notes, um, and I can turn them into a book to sell along with the map. I mean, it instantly becomes a product. Here's a new campaign with a continent and everything, and all the stuff is filled in. Here's what this country does, and here's the monsters in it, and here you got everything ready to go. So I just want to keep making those after I make the core system. So the only thing after that, like the other thing about the hit charts is you can make more. What if you want to make your own? I've got a whole thing about making your own monsters up. So you make your own monster, you can send it in, and maybe I can make up a whole book of custom made monsters from players, or I can just make them myself. But selling more hit charts or having more hit charts, they can come in books and become their own supplements and stuff like that. Right. Yeah. So once I mean, if I get over the hump of selling the thing and getting more than just a handful of people, then maybe, because there's certainly a I mean, I could be making content for this thing in a bunch of different ways. The adventures, the character create or the continent creation, different hit charts for new monsters, stuff like that. I have a an add in to the magic. Um, where you can make custom spells. There's also ritual magic. That's in the original system though, um, but you can sell a book that's about rituals. What's the, this is real satanic panic shit. If you were selling this in 1983, people want to burn you at the stake. But um, what's the ritual for raising this demon? What's the ritual for, you know, bringing free tea or whatever? What's the word? Trying to think of that particular kind of. I can't think of it. A free tea? So I'm probably mispronouncing it. But anyway, how do you invoke that particular type of monster? How do you call that god, manifest that god, or whatever, that kind of shit. So, yeah, there's all sorts of ways to do that. That's good for Cthulhu too. You can do that whole noir horror thing with the ritual magic and all that. Yeah, yeah, yep. We're getting there. I'm gonna put I have put some basic hit charts and stuff in there, but a lot of that stuff should be supplementary. If I tried to put all the hit charts in there, shit, the thing would look like the old yellow pages. But those should be. They might not even be something that you can get away with selling. They might have to be something that you get away with, that people can download. Otherwise, they might. If you try to spread it out too thin, people start getting mad. They can tell you're trying to prime the pump. But anyway, yeah, the main tome. So I had a lot of people telling me, well, you don't want to do it all in one book, but the prices, if you don't do it all, you got to do one book first and then see what you can do from there. So with Lulu, otherwise you'll drown yourself before you even start making money. But yeah, it has a lot of potential to go in a lot of different directions. The only thing I need is more time and more videos on a. I think I spend too much time on Twitter trying to get something out of nothing with Twitter because it's just too messed up. I need to be more on the videos, but I need to be more frequent with the videos. I need to be better with the videos. I need to be more consistent with the videos, but I got to do it with somebody. I just doing it alone isn't entertaining for most people. And I feel like I'm trying better when I can work with somebody. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know they made them either. I tried to advertise in the Yellow Pages when they were really starting to hit the skids because of the internet. That was an unpleasant experience. They were really having a hard time. And I talked to the sales rep guy that was selling. They messed everything up. They took my money and they didn't put it in, and it was a mess. And then they went under the actual Yellow Pages. So, but I didn't know that they had come back, or I thought they had gone completely. But yeah, yeah, it can be really big because if I put a hit chart in for every particular thing, it would just be too big. But I want to give a few, and then have people either buy a book separate with all of them, or it may be the best way to get people to continue to come to their website to see what's for sale is to have a website and then to have some of that stuff for free for download, or maybe just put it on TTRPG or whatever. Because all they really are is charts. Like I said, a lot of people said don't do the silhouettes, which was fine by me because I didn't want to have to pay 10 or 15 bucks per silhouette, you know, to some artist or whatever. So, but maybe in the future, if it gets fancy, I can do that if people like graphics or whatever. But I think the hit charts work just fine with the text. It's real easy to figure out. You know, it's easy for a DD. It's best if the DM uses the chart. I know a lot of players wouldn't like that. They want to see what's going on and all that. But if the DM has it, he can just, it creates this real easy way to explain what just happened in combat with a sentence. You can easily say the fighter's name is Tom. Tom swung his sword and hit the orc in the chest, and it cut the orc deeply, or something like that. I'm not a very good constructor of sentence off the fly, but you could, it tells a story without having to invoke a bunch of game jargon like double damage or +1 or anything like that. You can just keep it thematic, more immersive for the player. That's the other thing about it. I like the immersion of staying away from all those words and numbers. Sorry. But yeah, there's flight, there's underwater, there's I took some flying ships and stuff like that for like the Spelljammer people and all that. So I got those kind of airships. Can't think of anything that wasn't covered, at least in a very general way. Yeah, that's another problem. That the other problem with her is she can't commit ahead of time, and she's got a pretty funky home life. But yeah, it helps a lot. It's the same thing with the peanut thing. If I would have said I'm going to do the peanut thing 2 days from now, maybe more people would have shown up or something. But so there's definitely has to be that. But the bathrobe, I show up at the door with the bathrobe half open when the solicitors show up. Oh yeah, you can. Yeah, you can do the whole World War I thing with the Zeppelin airships and all that. Yep. All of that's in there because all you have to do is just go, what's it shaped like generally, or what's its okay, an airship. Where am I going to hit? There's a cockpit. There's a forward, aft, rudder, amidships, or whatever. Just think of the basic parts that make up that thing, and then put that in the chart, and there you go. Now, what's the hardest one to hit? And then put that at the statistically less likely out of 3d6, and then go up from there. And so, that's right. So, and in some cases, see, what I thought about doing was having a chart for every size. Like, okay, there's humanoid, but what if you're a Titan or something like that, and then having a really big one? And I thought, you're just making a lot of print that people don't need. So instead, what I did was I kept the wound level thing going. I was going to get rid of that, and I just kept it. So if you're shooting at a like an orc or something like that, their wound level is approximately the same as a human. But if you're shooting at a Titan or something, their wound level is a lot larger because they're this giant thing. You can still hit them in the leg or something like it. The only thing that changes that is if you're a melee attack. There's a big modifier for melee attack. Some people look at it and go, why? Well, the modifier isn't about armor class. It's about accuracy. The modifier makes the fact that you're 6 foot tall, swinging the sword at something that's 20 feet tall. You're pretty much guaranteed that the only thing on that thing you can hit with a 3 foot long sword or 4 foot long sword is the thing's leg or foot because it's enormous. So you have this giant modifier that does that. But it doesn't change your damage or anything like that. It just tempers where you can hit it based on its size. So that's why I did it that way. But my co-host says the problem with the game is psychology, because players are going to look at that and they're going to see these giant modifiers and they're going to feel like they're being hamstrung. And I said, you just have to find a way to get people to understand that the modifier isn't about how bad you are or how bad you're about to do. It's just putting things on a scale based on accuracy. But she says psychologically, when you give them a minus, you're telling them that they suck at something or their character sucks at something. I said, well, I guess the marketing is how to get people to stop seeing it that way when they look at this game. So that's the only thing. Because when you start out with skills, most of your skills will have a negative number, a negative modifier. And that's the way I try to explain to people is I say this: go try to do something you've never done before. Yeah. Have you ever, swung a golf club? You ever tried to play golf? Never played golf? Well, go try to do it now. How do you think you're going to do? You think you're going to hit that ball? You're going to suck. So you're going to have a negative modifier if you attempt to, use a golf skill that you don't have. But as you use it more and more often, or you go into a pro and get trained, because you can get trained to get levels in this game. It's not always about experience. You can go to some guru. Then you get less of a negative because you start to become good at it. And that's how the level advancement works. It's not like D&D where you go, okay, I've got 2,000 XP, now I can go to the next level. No, your levels are all about your skill. Just a little bit different that way too. Well, yeah, I was trying to figure out how to do that, and I thought the modifiers were the best way. But another way I was going to do it was going to say, okay, here, like a Titan, here is your spread's 3 to 18 because you're rolling 3d6. So if you're most likely to hit the foot, so maybe 3 through 10 would be foot, and then 11 and 12 would be leg. And that off chance you somehow got high enough to hit his ankle or his leg or something like that. But even then, that seems almost unrealistic. So, and I thought about it and I go, well, really, it's almost, if you, then you had to start thinking about, okay, well, how big are you? And what if you're playing a game where you're, for whatever, like it's combat between two Titans or two things of variant. Then all of a sudden it got real complicated thinking about, well, you're going to have to tell the person, use this slide because it's got this height and all that. So I said, that gets too complicated. So I used the wound level instead. So you might be able to hit the leg of the Titan, but it's highly unlikely. So basically what it is you're rolling on the die and you get a major modifier that keeps it from going to something like head or chest, most likely. It's the way you write out the charts. So your accuracy roll is going to keep you either at miss completely or at foot. And then the wound level shows you that you're hacking at this monstrosity. You just, you pinprick this monster with a little tiny sword, It's skill improvement. Each skill, you can have levels in the skill. You start with -5, and you can go as high as +5 with the skills over a period of time, increasing XP. So you don't have levels like D&D. You have skill levels in the build. So um, you might have the skill of short sword and maybe a broadsword, but for whatever reason you favor the broadsword, or you just own the broadsword and you don't own a short sword or whatever it is. So you've trained in or used that sword much more than the other. So your skill in that sword will likely be higher than the short sword. Well, missile works the same way. Yeah, same deal. Spells aren't, you don't use the chart. Um, the spells just do the damage that they do um, based on their description. So even I have thought about doing it with magic missile and stuff like that, and I thought you're just complicating it. People find that complicated. Now they're gonna have to dig around it. So you just magic missile does a certain amount of damage, and so you don't have to roll to hit for spells, but you do for missile weapons, and it's the same charts. Yep. Now when you get into like World War II or gunfire or something like that, you might have if you're firing a machine gun, you might have multiple rolls in the same attack. You have a rate of fire for guns that fire real fast. So then you roll 3 attacks or whatever at the same time. And they might be in different places, but that's typical. Machine gun, the recoil might, modify your aim point significantly or something like that. So that's why you do it that way. So it's all in where you put the only way I'll be very honest, I used a lot of mathematical assistance to get that to play out right. So that the the leg is in the right die facing and all that, so that the probabilities play out and all that sort of stuff. And in some cases, I might have messed that up. So that's why I was kind of concerned. So that's why I decided I was only going to put a few out and then double check them and put out more uh, hit charts later, maybe by downloadable PDF or something. Oh, I'm gonna yeah. With you, I don't know what time you get up for work. I'm kind of a night owl myself, um, but yeah, yep. I got nothing but time. That's my problem. Yeah, no work to go to. But yeah, that's how it works. All that stuff. Um, oh, then there's explosives. That's a saving throw. So yeah, I was thinking of making everything a saving throw. Still thinking about that. That was one of the things I was kind of toiling with. Is just make damage a saving throw. I still think that's a much more efficient way to do it. But I thought about it, and it was one of those things where you design for the psychology of the people, and maybe I should stop doing that because I'm not very good at reading people. But my initial idea was saving throw, and for everything, shit, that would be fast. And the benefit to that is that it keeps both players engaged in the combat even more so. You roll the attack, they roll the saving throw. And that tells the damage. Um, I used GTP a little bit, but it's kind of stupid and it kind of messed some things up. So I took the part that it didn't mess up and I put it in Excel. One thing I am good at is Excel. Like I can code Excel and all that. Like, not like VBA code, but just like I can use the Excel language. I took a course in that. So I used a lot of Excel sheets. But I did try to get GTP to do some things, but it's fickle. Some days it'll do exactly what you want, and then you come back the next day and tell it, okay, let's make more of those, and it just goes, nope, fuck you, I ain't doing it. So I just kind of gave up on that thing. Yeah. It's the save is one um, table, 3d6, 13 or better. But what I was going to do is have damage be a modifier to that save. So if you're a kobold and you take a fray grenade, you're a tiny little shit, and that's a big boom. So, uh, you're the fray grenade damage would be like, a saving throw. But I didn't know if people would like that, so I kind of backed off of it, and I went with a damage number. So there's a damage number from the fray grenade, and then if the kobold's got some armor, that armor takes away, like say it's -1, so the damage is 9 because the kobold's wearing leather armor. Okay, and then there's a chart that just says, okay, if it's 1 to 2 over, it's a minor wound. If it's 3 to 4 over, it's a moderate wound. If it's this many over, you know, it's a severe wound. And then if that's your arm, let's say it's your arm, it may blow the arm right off. If it's your head, it might blow the head into. So if you're hitting the head hard enough with a warhammer, it'll crush your skull and kill you instantly. Stuff like that. But if you have a helmet on, it might, and that's how you see the benefit of the armor. If like if you're a kobold and I'm Conan, and I hit you with a warhammer in the head, it probably crush your skull. But if you've got a pretty good helmet on, maybe it won't crush your skull. It'll just knock you the F out or something like that. That kind of mitigation to damage is what armor does. Yeah, I took several courses, so I can make that. I didn't do the other programming that much, but I did do that. Took that course. So, and it hasn't changed very much. So I can still do it in the modern stuff. So I got a little bit of a feel out of it with ChatGTP, and then I took what it said, converted it into Excel. So I've got Excel sheets that, see, that's the other thing too with people, like, it was kind of off topic a little bit, but people go, well, I really like that. I'd play that Panzer Blitz with you, but it really looks like it's complicated. And what they're really saying is, I don't want to do division every fucking time I shoot at somebody, because that's how you had to play Panzer Blitz. And you had to do the division in your head. And I hated that shit too. So I just made an Excel sheet. Now you don't. What you roll, it does, just gives you your answer right away without having to do division in your head. And then I thought that would get people to play that game with me. And then they go, well, I don't really want to have to, play with a computer next to it. Why not? It solves the problem. but anyway, that's how I got it all worked out in my head. But I do use Chat GTP for some things, usually just to speed up my writing and to be more accurate with the writing, because my fingers don't do it right. So, but the more I use it, the more I realize, don't use this thing. It makes its own mistakes. But it is good for DMing. There's some things it can do that once you teach it how to do it, you don't have to worry. Like it'll whip up a kick-ass NPC with a little bit of a backstory. And if you teach it, like I taught it all about my Ash World Star Wars campaign. So it wouldn't just make a generic NPC. It would make an NPC that based off of what it knew of my campaign, it would do it right. It was really good at that. The only thing is it's totally woke. So 90% of the time it's going to pick a chick if you don't tell it to pick a dude. And even sometimes if you tell it to pick a dude, it still picks a chick. And then you just got to, tell it, no, I want a male. And it'll change it, but it does that shit. So, but otherwise it's good. It'll do it for D&D too. But anything too complicated, it doesn't know anything. And I argued with it about politics because that Die in Place guy said I wanted to see what it said about politics. Shit. It was like listening to CNN. But anyway, so yeah, that was my two ideas. So I was going to actually have an alternative combat for people, but honestly, I didn't want to do it because I thought, what if I got a way I like? What if everybody hates it and chooses the way I don't like? And now I've got a book that has two ways, but everybody plays only one way. So I don't know. Maybe I should put the alternative one in there. That was using saving throws. Yeah, I really had it humming on the Ash Worlds, and then it had some sort of brain fart. They sent me an email. Oh, there's been a major thing, blah, 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 and it had like an aneurysm or something. I don't know, and it lost all of that and ruined it. And I said I'm not teaching it again, but I do have it doing some of my Greyhawk, and it's okay. But that I really had it going for a while in Ash Worlds, and it was really good about doing stuff like that. It would also come up with an adventure real quick and easy. And I had a guy that was playing that was really into West End games, Star Wars 2, and I never remember stuff very well, but he like remembered the plot of every module. So I made sure, I says, here, read this and make sure this isn't stolen from one of the other products. And he goes, it's not. It's stolen from like 3 and mixed together. Well, okay. So, but yeah, I would do because the other thing I would have it do is I would have it write out battles, like there's a lot of times where battles would go on that my players wouldn't be in the battles, but they'd need to know about them or they might be witness to them, and the thing it was really good with that. I had it write out storylines, as I like having big novel-like narratives in my Star Wars. Some people get miffed at that, but I love it. And it had whole scenes on ships and fighters and shit while they were write a fucking movie script. It was great. I loved it. Mm-hmm. But there's some days where it just goes, I'm not going to do that. And I had it formatting my charts for me, and it would do 3 and then stop it halfway through one. And then you had to go tell it, finish that chart. And it just consistently would do that. So I gave up on it for that kind of stuff and just use Excel. I copy the chart out of the Excel and then format it in Word. Do it that way. It's kind of a slow process. But eventually I'll get it all put together and then sent out to that printer guy and all that Lulu stuff. I'm not that far away from it right now. I just, every once in a while I see something, I better fix that. That doesn't look right. But I got most of the concepts and everything down, all that written out. The charts are the hard part. That's another thing. I was afraid about charts because some people complain about charts so emphatically. And use a lot of charts. It's just easier, in my opinion. But and I thought about using cards and stuff like that, but that just increases the cost of production and makes things more logistically infeasible because then you've got to go to a separate place to print the cards out. And then you got to figure out how to get those cards and the book to you to put it in a box. And then you got to figure out who's going to print the box and you got to pay for the box and all that shit. So I figured I'd just do this big tome. It would have everything you need. It's a good starting point. You can play. And then if people like it, go from there. And if it really takes off, then later on I can go, hey, instead of using the book for picking your combat actions, here's combat action cards. And each player can just bring those to the table and they can, slap down the one they want when they want to play and stuff like that. Yeah. But some people, they go, oh, it slows down play. It what? Yeah, it slows down play because I got to keep looking at it. You mean like the table? What? Why don't you just, so photocopy it. You could photocopy it and then you could have it in a sheet, So there's a place near me that'll make a DM screen. So that'll be something that I'll do at some point is go to them and have player and DM screens made that just have charts and stuff like that, just like D&D. They make 3-fold ones called Game Crafter. They do some stuff like that. A lot of their stuff looks kind of chintzy, but I think that would work okay. So I got ideas like that if the thing takes off. People like it. Game screens and card accessories and stuff like that. So, look to see if anybody likes it. But maybe I should have somebody. Wait, maybe we should. Well, I don't know. Have somebody play it out as I'm writing it. I don't know. You can see the somewhere I've got that D&D one or D-Day. D-Day was the playthrough we did. But it doesn't show any charts. I didn't want to go. I had it on Tabletop Simulator, and I didn't want to sully up the imagery with the paperwork. So it doesn't really. I mean, it shows us playing it, but it doesn't really show any of the mechanics or how you do it. So that might have to do one where people can see, okay, well, here's how you do it. Here's the page. Here's what it looks like and stuff like that. Yeah. Yep. I have a little bit for encumbrance, but not much. A lot of people balk at that one too. But I like to have that as at least a optional rule. So stuff like that. That and this isn't even the only one I've come up with. I actually have another RPG, but it's not as big or as complicated. Well, not that this one's complicated, but it only has a little bit to it. But I shouldn't get ahead of myself. Hell, I don't even know if this one's going to go make any headway. So PDF, huh? Here the last thing I saw those Broser people put out really made me think. It's the weirdest thing. I saw that Contra thing. I mean, they can do whatever they want. It's cool, whatever, you know. You don't and not everything has to be super complicated. But the way that they resolve a battle is, at least according to that page, is basically what it is they took an Avalon Hill game or an SPI type game from the 70s and took the victory conditions and turned that into the battle resolution. It's the ultimate fast forward. And I mean, they act like they're super hardcore, but basically that's just going, I don't want to read this book. And and reading the very last page and going, okay, that's how you play the war game, and turning the very the very end of it into the whole game. The victory conditions. That's what they had. I guess they probably think that's clever in a way to make things simpler or whatever. But I was blown away because I expected that people that talk about elite play and all that to have a little bit more meat in the way that they consider a battle. Oh really? Oh wow. See, now I feel like a moron because I totally was ripping on them about that. It's weird how it came up with that though. Just at the end of the thing is oh, I had no idea. I just assumed it was theirs. I didn't know. Oh yeah. That's weird how it did that. They know shit. Like I asked it, I go, do you know what Panzer Leader being 1974? I said, do you know what Panzer Leader is? I was like, okay, you can read off a wiki page, but do you know how to play it? Like, do you know the pieces? And it kind of did, but it kind of didn't either. But it was amazing how much it did know about some of this stuff, some of that war game stuff. Okay, that makes more sense because it was super simplistic. But all right, I got had. Oh well. Those fucking guys, man. I played some Star Wars with a couple of them, and they actually were really good role players with it, and pretty sharp, and clearly they were veterans. But the minute I said anything that they disagreed with, they went from friendly, courteous, um, competent players to a bunch of raging, foul-mouthed teenagers. I mean, like instantly. So that was the end of that. I told them I didn't like gold for XP, and they got really nasty. So I kind of got my hit back up, and I got nasty back. But boy, they like to go that route. That was crazy. But yeah, they weren't too bad with that. But that's the other thing. If I got people to like this and people to play, I'd be happy just playing this. This could play Star Wars. You could do Star Wars with this. You could do D&D with it. You could do anything with this. The beauty of this game is it's not just the material I make that you can put into it. It allows you to customize whatever you want, like dungeons and all that sort of stuff. So you could take content from anything else and put it into the thing, and it would work okay. What I did with like monster creation was I just like took every claw, jaw, beak, breath weapons, all that sort of stuff. I made a list of all those deals, and then little like a point buy system as to how to create your monster so it isn't too overpowered or whatever. And you just use that point buy system. You can custom create whatever you want. with a monster. I'd listened to that guy talk about Barrel Maze when he first made it. I forget where I was listening to that, but I did listen to that guy when he came out with it. And I don't want to sound snooty or whatever, but that stuff, it just all sounds the same to me. I mean, there's a little bit of variation and all that, but generally it's just, I mean, I was like, okay, you know, but to be fair, as soon as I hear 5e, I just kind of go, well, yeah, I don't have any, but all of it. I played Basic Fantasy, and it was okay. I didn't play it long enough to reach any of the differences that it supposedly had between it and BX or whatever. But to me, it's like, okay, if you can't afford or don't want to pay for some asinine, like Sylvie was showing how much an OD&D box goes for the other day. Fuck. And okay, so you want some retro clones so you don't have to pay those asinine prices. Okay, that's it. Now we've got the retro clone. We're good. But instead, now there's 100 retro clones, and they're all like a little bit the same, but a little bit different. I don't know. Seemed like a nice enough guy. Another, probably does well, but uh, but yeah, for bro, yeah. See, like that Harmony chick or whatever. Like here's what I was trying to explain, and they got on the few that I didn't have on block got on me on this shit. I says there's no reason when you create a world like this one I was talking about, internal consistency is a good thing. Um, and they all went on this. It's fantasy. Nothing is supposed to make sense, and I don't think that's true. What I was saying was it's more believable and immersive if you walk into a desert and it's got desert things, and that there isn't an ice cube in the desert. If there is an ice cube in the desert, you can say it's fantasy, but it should probably have some context in the world. Otherwise, it looks like you're just using the word fantasy to excuse sloppy world and map creation. And instead of addressing that, they go, you want to know where the dragon poops. Okay. Okay. I do remember the guy, and the only thing I don't remember who I was listening to when he was being interviewed, but I did listen to him, and the only thing I couldn't get Lotro out of my mind because of the word barrel. But to be fair, I wasn't paying that much attention. Um, I think I just had it on because I like to work to background noise. But um, but yeah, those bros are. So she went on and on. She goes, I don't understand why you're doing this. I don't think my players would ask about that. And I couldn't understand why she kept invoking that phrase. I go, I didn't know what she was talking about. I said, I'm talking about world creation. But they didn't anyway, so but she was kind of snotty about it, so I just said, I've had enough of that shit. So I don't get them people. I don't get them at all. Um, but wargaming or having a war game on top of your RPG, that's fine. I like that. I did that with Star Wars. That's why they jumped in and started playing it. Well, like I say, she was not very polite when I was talking to her, or brought up the thing. She was so, but she's one of them people that started. I guess here's the thing: when for a while, all them Broser people started following me because they were playing the Star Wars game with me, and I was sort of defending them because I didn't know anything about any of the other shit that they were doing. All the trolling and the weird shit. And so then they all followed me, and she was one of them. But not for long. She's one of them people that followed me for like a week and then unfollowed me. And you can follow whoever you want. I don't even care that much. I just go, why just a few days? And people go, well, that means you care because you want to know. And I go, I don't. Just kind of weird. Why is it all? So she did that. I didn't care, but I do think about it. I was like, why do people do that? Just after a couple of days, what happened? Um, but I brought this thing up, and she wasn't. She just was kind of nasty about it, kind of rude. Um, but the most upsetting part about it to me was that it was a straw man argument that didn't address what I was talking about to begin with, but they all patted themselves on the back and declared victory. And I thought, you haven't even addressed what I said. It's clear you don't even understand it. So whatever. Here's the thing. It's not overly sensitive. It's just if people are going to be impolite or terse, or disingenuous with the conversation, I don't see any point of pursuing it any further. You're not going to get anywhere with them. And her and that TBE guy, basic expert guy, they weren't being honest about the conversation. Yeah, it was doing that for a while with people too. Yeah. Um, could have been her. Could have been why. But I don't see it. I just figure it was I didn't see any point in pursuing it because they weren't going to engage the conversation in a honest way. They were, you know, just kind of attacking a straw man. So I didn't bother with it anymore. Yeah. Well, and he's another one. I I don't know why. Him. He just the Dunder Moose guy just stopped following me, which is totally cool. I don't give a shit. He followed me for a long time and then stopped. I think they all just kind of got the hey, he's not cool anymore. Don't follow him, which is fine. I don't care. She only did it for about a day or two and then undid it. And I go, what the hell? Well, whatever. I don't care. I really don't that much. But I was, when it came to the discussion I was talking about, basically what it was is I made a video, and they decided to interject on the video that I made, which is fine. I like to have feedback, but I went into a debate situation with them, and they just simply went into a straw man situation. So I gave up on it. I told them they were attacking a straw man and went on my way. So, but that TBE guy, that's when like some of the stuff these people do. He has a normal picture on his avatar, and he's got the basic expert thing. Okay, fine. Then one day he puts on that eye patch picture and the fake scar drawn on his face, and like what was that? And then he was even worse to people than he normally is. And I thought, shit, that's weird. So I gave up. Um, with those people. And the Victor guy was nice. That Dutch guy, I had no problem with him. He actually let me on his stream a couple of times. But then he called me a conspiracy theorist about Shadow Dark. So I just go, I'm too old to, I don't want to get into flame wars, you know. I didn't know what that was. So, you know. Then there was that crafty Matt guy. He's another one that got up my, I don't like him. And, just like you said earlier, that's the way they are on Twitter, and it's different. When I on Twitter and on anyway, he says all this stupid shit. Then I got onto a live where he was on it, and he wasn't talking that mad shit then. But this all this stuff started. I started looking at some of this stuff. A lot of these people. That crafty Matt, at one point, he put on a meme that made some remark about Venture Satanis and his wife, and also that he was and his kid. And I thought, dude, these people doing that shit, this is weird. This is really high school wackadoodle stuff to be saying this about each other over the internet. And so I thought, I don't know that these people are really any loss, So I just kind of gave up on all of that with these folks. So I did get really block heavy after that. And it did two things. I didn't see a lot of crap that I didn't want to see about people making horseshit remarks about each other, but I also saw a lot less RPG stuff. Sort of like, well, and then now it's hard to get in with everybody. But some of this stuff was just, what are you saying stuff about the guy's wife for? Holy shit. Yeah. I had him on stream. He was still a little bit arrogant and self-centered. Said he was, some super arcade master or whatever. But on the chat, on the Discord and on the Twitter and the Gilded, he was kind of irritating. But when they started I don't even know these guys personally, but when I see people start attacking family members over a game, I figure I don't need to be in discourse with this sort of stuff. So, but I don't think it's being overly sensitive, but I think what it is that I'm trying to make a point, and I'm trying to get people interested and engaged in chatting with me about the videos I make, and then I have people who engage in debate that's disingenuous and a little bit mean spirited and kind of trollish. And I thought, I'm trying to build something here. I don't know that this is going to reflect on it very well. So I just that's why I turned them off, that chick too, that Hermione chick, because they just weren't going to talk about it. They were going to keep talking about how I was mentioning dragon poop or whatever. So I just gave up. Yeah. We put dragon we put dragon poop as a major export commodity from one of the countries in our world, just because we were laughing at the joke about the dragon poop, about them saying that's what I was talking about. So, but, and that was another thing. I wanted to ask somebody, and I don't know who to ask. I tried to get support from Twitter. They don't have it. I went to the Twitter's um, blue check people help desk thing or whatever. They got a community, and I'm not the only one complaining about that. So I felt better. I thought maybe it was something I was doing. But what I wanted to know was, I went on to, this was some time ago. I paid a little bit of extra money. I think it was $10 or $11. Um, to have, I don't know if this, how much this helps or even matters, but I thought it might help my reach to become a professional account. And I have myself listed as a professional account in my bio. Cost me $10. That says entertainment and recreation. So this account that I have is completely foobarred. It's never going to get fixed. I have two others. So I was thinking, what, maybe it's just easier just to pay the money to have the other one turned to a business account too. But I wanted to maybe get rid of this one as a business account and then have the other one on it, because I haven't used it for much of anything. And then have that be, like you were suggesting, a separate account just for the promotion of the product and all that. That might solve at least some of the reach problems. Although I know this effing thing knows that it's still me. It's not like it goes, "Oh, I'm confused. This is a whole new person." It still knows it's me. So I don't know how much of a help it'll be to use a different one, but I do have one other one to use. So I can set that up. Yeah, well, that's what they kept saying. They were saying that I was, I don't know, some nonsense about that. But all I was talking about was that, um, have your terrain look right and all that. That's all. Internal consistency doesn't mean that you're stifling fantasy. It just means that you're making fantasy, in my opinion, show out, be more of a pop. I like the idea of fantasy being on top of a realistic, normal world. Then it looks more fantastic. If pink mushrooms growing on rocks is normal, then in the world and it's everywhere, then what's fantasy about that? But if you're, to me, Merlin was fantasy because he was this guy that could, do a bunch of shit that most people thought couldn't be done because they were, normal medieval people. But anyway, but yeah, I've got the second account, so maybe I can use that to promote things if it helps. But it's still, I mean, it knows it's me, so it might just go spam or something like that. The reason I don't do it is, and I'm still hesitant to do it, is I'm concerned that the thing will make some connection, and I don't have my password or anything for this account anymore. I prefer a low fantasy setting personally, but there's nothing in the game that I'm making that prevents one or the other. I just prefer that when I'm making, and I don't even know if you consider this low fantasy, but I prefer a little bit of realism. In the map here that I got behind us, there's a bunch of dragon worshiping cultists that sacrifice their criminal prisoners to the dragons when they're mating. There's dwarves in the hills and stuff like that. So is that still low fantasy? I don't even know how that would qualify. But I do like an element of realism in that there shouldn't be an iceberg right next to a desert, and that the vegetation looks right and all that sort of stuff. I think it's more immersive to have internal consistency in the world. And what I mean by internal consistency is just good geology and geography and stuff like that. But I did say another thing about, and Bill didn't like this either. This is another thing he really got, that's a bunch of crap. I don't know why. I don't need to do that. But he kind of said the same thing. I don't need to know what monsters are doing in their off time. But I like the idea of when you create a dungeon, think about why there's monsters in it. What was that dungeon beforehand? You know, maybe it's a purpose-filled built dungeon, but those aren't as frequent. Like a dungeon is actually in like real life, a dungeon was just a jail cell that was buried in the ground. That's all. It wasn't some massive thing. But in a RPG, like what is it? The bowels of a castle. It used to be a runes. Uh, what was it, and what's the history of it, and what are the monsters doing in there? Are they seeking food? Are Why are they guarding treasure? How do they get the treasure? What keeps them from leaving? Uh, you know, how are they going to interact with one another? Instead of just being props that sit inside a room waiting to be attacked by a party, I like them to be more fleshed out and kind of be their own characters. What if there's a vamp like Dungeon? Dungeon's a fun game, and I get it. It's not meant to be super realistic. It's just a board game. It's a fun one. But if there was a vampire living in one of the rooms, and like two doors down there was a werewolf, wouldn't shit be going like at some point they're going to cross paths, right? And they hate each other generally, that kind of thing. And they turned that whole thing in. That Hermione just kept going, you're just talking about where the zombies poop and shit. What? No. Sci fantasy. I love it. I love, I mean, a lot of people consider Star Wars sci fantasy. I don't know that I do, but that's fine. Um, I used to uh, hear the term ancient future. A friend of mine always called uh, things like 40K ancient future. And I thought that was cool. But I mean, if the story works where there's there's high tech and like Thunder the Barbarian, that was kind of sci fantasy, wasn't it? I loved that cartoon. I ran to the TV to watch Thundar. Really? Oh, I love that game. It's like the monopoly of D&D. I love Dungeon. I One time I ran Dungeon as a dungeon using Beckme. That was fun. I'll give you that. If it's a choice between the two, I'm going with Hero Quest because it's got a little more depth and all that. That's for sure. Um, I only played Talisman a handful of times, but it was okay. Yep, yep. And I live in. I mean, I won't. I mean, I love Star Wars. Love it, love it. But yeah, I loved Thundar. I'll play that stuff. I'll put it into a thing, into a story. I like to have stories. I like sandbox play, but a story on top of it. It doesn't mean that the players have to be part of the story or be involved with the story. They can just ignore it completely and go do whatever they want, but it's still going to happen around them. Like my Star Wars people, I had a couple of people go, I don't want to be Empire or Rebel. Okay, but that right now they're at war, so you don't have to join either side. But if you go to the right planet, they might be fighting, and that story went on. I just like to have that. I think it drives things. It that sound that sounds familiar, but I'm not even. Oh yeah, I have. I've seen that. Oh, is a huh? Yeah, that's not terribly different from what I was coming up with character creation. Let's see. There is a a Gloomhaven set on Tabletop Simulator. Sometimes these don't exist anymore because they're if they're old, but they might still be around. Let's see. Oh yeah, might still be there though. Yeah, you if you play this and then play what I've written up, you'll be amazed at some of the similarities. I think, though I have not played this, but just by the description, it sounds incredibly similar. I don't know if this one still works or not, but it'd be cool to find out. Do you have Tabletop Simulator? Okay. Oof. Huh. They got the whole set on tabletop. Oh, you don't. Oh, you haven't bought Tabletop Simulator on Steam yet? Oh, okay. That's the best way to do that sort of stuff because you for $20 you get tabletop and then it comes with all this free shit. It doesn't always work because it's stuff that other people make, but it's always free. So I mean something like that to go and buy at a store. Fuck man, I looked at one that looked like it would be. Oh, what the hell? It's a real famous game, and they remade it and they made it super big and something Imperium or whatever. And Jesus, it was like $150 or so. I mean, it looked great, but I just don't have money anymore. The most expensive board game I think I ever bought was a little over $100 in 1984. So that kind of money in 1984 was a lot of money. But Twilight Imperium, yeah, I knew like I couldn't. Yeah, it fucking man, it's got all this shit. It looks great, all these big plastic pieces, and but it was buco, and I was like, I could never, you know. And then for years, I still do because of my unfortunate situation. But for years, I lived in an apartment with a wife and laying that out. It was you. The minute you laid something like that out, the bitching started. When are you going to take that down? That's crowding everything. I can't move. Just constant. So, well, that's it. I lost a lot of stuff too over the years, and and that was another point of contention where I fought with my wife for years because she kept whining, "Why you not? Why you throw it out? Throw it out. That's old. You blah blah blah. If you're not going to sell it or do something with it, I'm not doing something with it because I don't have a lot of friends, thanks to you, and uh, and you won't let me lay it out. But if it gets thrown away or gets damaged, to replace it, like a 1984 copy of Flight Leader from Avalon Hill, all that collector shit. Why not? People don't understand that, that's why I hold on to old stuff, even if it's, because, the money. Now, Hero Quest was another one that I had, and the worst. So I'm going over to a friend's house, and we're going to be hanging out for quite some time. It was like a cabin in the woods, and we were going to play games because we're nerds. We don't go hunting. We're going to play a bunch of games. So I had them all my games in the back of his uh, Buick Skylark, and stacked pretty high. And long story short, we get T-boned pretty hard, and that shit got ejected out of the car, and there was a big gully, like a irrigation ditch along the road, and was filled with weeds and water and stuff. It just recently rained pretty heavily, and most of that shit went right into the water and got fucked. Hero Quest, Flight Leader, a bunch of really cool war games. I was just irate. Yeah, it ruined all of that stuff. A big ton of my collection got lost. When the cop was taking the report, he goes, "How come you keep looking in the ditch?" And I says, "There's more money in that ditch than this piece of shit that we're driving is worth." Fucked everything up. See, I used to have that. I used to have a 12 by 24 miniatures table, and a card table for board games, and shelves all around the basement. I had a bar with 3 stools. I had this kick-ass like man cave basement, and then the money thing started to hit, and I had to, I got hooked up with this, with the chick, and then next thing you know, I'm in an apartment. Well, first I was in a fucking trailer, like a double wide, and then I was in an apartment, and then the apartments kept getting smaller because and of course every time the room, we don't have enough room, the target was my stuff because it's stupid toy stuff, So I kept fighting a war of preservation for that shit for like 15 years. But yeah, I used to have tons of that stuff. I had a bunch of micro armor down there and everything. A lot of that got fucked up in the crash, and then the rest of it got fucked up in a divorce. So that's why I'm always screaming about Tabletop Simulator, because for a lot of that stuff, it's all I have left. I couldn't go and repurchase my Hero Quest collection even if I wanted to. Even if I had the money to. I don't have the money to, and even if I did, I've got no place to put it right now. So Tabletop Simulator lets me scratch that itch because it has almost all the Hero Quest stuff on it, and it's all free. Yes, it's not real, but it's 3-dimensional, and I can play it with people if they'll play. I can do that with Axis and Allies. There's a bunch of really cool games on Tabletop Simulator. Most people go, I don't know why people don't like it so much. I love it. I can play BattleTech on it too. That's my lifeline. Otherwise, all I do is sit and lament about how much shit I've lost over the years because of various catastrophes. Yeah, yeah, that's stuff like I had the electronic D&D board game set that got left in a storage facility where that kind of shit happened. When we had the trailer, we had a bunch of storage bins because we went from from a house to the double wide trailer, and then some of those got screwed when we lost a bunch of money. And one of the best And probably most expensive things that got left in that thing was the electronic D&D game. Sucks. Imagine going, I mean, even if you find that thing, what do they want for it, you know? Jesus. Buco. So, but for 20 bucks flat and a little bit, you know, it doesn't always work. You know, some things don't pan out, but there's 40K stuff, at least some of it's left. A lot of it got, you know, the ban hammer because Games Workshop made them delete it, but there's still some Space Hulk, I think. But you can play D&D all day long on the thing and have three-dimensional miniatures, and it's got Hero Quest and some bunch of war games and stuff like that. So that's why I love my tabletop simulator. And a bunch of Star Wars stuff. You can play Star Wars miniatures on it. Armada. There's a whole Armada set still. I love that. Um, Star Wars miniatures battle from West End Games. There's the the Hoth board game that they made. All that stuff. Love it. So what I was hoping to do, there's a couple people. There's one dude in particular that I see. I don't think he's okay sometimes. He just streams his bedroom door, and occasionally I'll see him tweet kind of weird paranoid shit. And I know a couple guys um, and gals that are you can just you can tell they're real lonely and they live alone, and but they're gamers. And I thought it'd be super cool uh, if these people are so inclined to just kind of do a tabletop simulator holiday thing. Because I when I got divorced, I spent and the COVID thing because my family's was real weird about it. I spent a lot, you know, several years alone during Thanksgiving and Christmas. It sucks. So I just thought it'd be great for, you know, kind of a neat thing to get some of these people that look like they're on their own to play. I tried to do it a couple of years ago. I didn't nobody seemed all that excited, but just thought it'd be neat. Kind of a cool way to get people feeling better about stuff. Plus, plus I can play some games with some people because I never get to do it. Oh God, 4 a.m. All righty, man. Well, thanks for all your help. We'll get her going. I know it's a little frustrating with all the people and not being able to communicate with them, but yeah. But yeah, we'll get her going and try to do some videos about it. So yeah, we'll see you soon. Thanks again. Bum, 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 bum. I see some people still out there. Who's still out there lurking on my YouTube channel? Who's still out there? Sometimes it tells me, sometimes it don't. Nope, it ain't gonna tell me. Well, all right then. Callie, are you still watching? My sister watching? You're a trooper if you're still watching after 3 hours. All righty. Well, still waiting for a little reply.
The person you're calling isn't.
Oh. See who else is here. It says there's 2 people here, but I don't know if they're here or not. Anybody? Well, Peanut must be saved. Oh, or Justice 4. See if we can get anybody on the Peanut Express here tonight before I.
The person you're calling isn't accepting messages right now. Why don't you text them or try calling again later? Thank you for calling US Cellular voicemail. Goodbye.
Okay, goodbye. Oh. Dun, dun, dun. I said, who's he? What? Oh, that's so funny. Okay. Well, I guess there is nobody here. Oh, there we go. End stream. Have a good night.